It's the World Pokemon League, #1 draft league you could ever see. Getting stronger, yeah, I'm building up my own team. Gotta be the champion, the one you can't defeat. It's the World Pokemon League, #1 draft league you could ever see. Getting stronger, yeah, I'm building up my own team. Gotta be the champion, the one you gotta beat.
All right, welcome back. I guess this is more of a professional intro. Welcome back, WPL. I am your host, Jay Jingles, and also your host. I don't know, how you want to be Adrian, or you want to be Kinky Nesquik, or LA Lions, or...
All day 0713? Yeah, we'll go with that one.
Dude, you have so many aliases. You have more aliases than friggin... I don't know, I can't think of one. Yeah, you have the most. That's why I couldn't think of anyone.
Exactly, Sephiroth.
Going back to our conversation like 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, Sephiroth.
Context is everything, especially for the people listening. So, anywho, people were saying that they kind of enjoyed it, the premiere one. So I guess we'll do Master Ball.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I guess if you're gonna yell at me to do it, sure.
All right. I guess we'll just do the same thing we did last time. We won't make fun of Kevs as much because I already cried a bit, but.
Yeah. No, they did cry a lot. I heard so.
Yeah. I'm expecting a comment from him after this. All right, so the first team, we're gonna do the same thing we did last time. I'm not gonna just go check out the channel if you want to see the other one. So we got Premiere already on the channel. Just go check it out. We're kind of joking around, but yeah. So we just kind of went over the teams one by one. We took quite a long time each one last time, so we're probably gonna shorten it just a little bit. But we'll just kind of see what we think of the teams. We'll probably give them an actual rating instead of swipe left, swipe right. Yeah, like Uber Eats, delivery driver, and, you know, introducing to your father on a second date or something like that.
Please don't do this again.
I kind of just surprised you. I was like, yeah, by the way, he had no, if you guys watched the last video, he had no idea I was going to do any of that. So that was just all, he just made it up. Yep.
Yeah.
Speaking of making it up, how did your draft go?
I got sniped a lot, so it was this is not the team that I intended to start with. Goldango, I of course
that was
didn't
the
know
plan.
if I would get sniped on. Yeah.
If you got sniped on that would have been pretty sad. Being first overall. It would have been
crazy. I had the first overall pick. I mean, somebody coming in there and sniping me would have been like, you know, sniper no sniping. So, but yeah, I thought I after that I kind of was just like, you know what, I kind of want to just go like, what are some crazy mons available? And I saw Primarina was available on the turnaround. I'm like, wow, I thought Primarina's
so good.
Typing is fantastic, and you know, again, for me, it's typing. Fire, water, grass, Fairy, Dragon, Steel, and I'm like, well, I can lock up Dragon, Fairy, and Steel pretty quickly here. Let's do it, and let's start on my water core, and here we go. Fire, water, grass core, and yeah, and then the draft kind of just put itself into place after that.
I think everybody would probably kind of go with, you got two of the best draft league mons ever. Like, you got Mienshao and Primarina on the same team, so that's going to go a long way. There's a lot of spread damage on this team, like not just like heat waves and stuff. No, this is eruptions and make it rains and the hyper voice stuff from Prim, and yeah, like this is nuts. You have, and not to mention you have the Stony J to just boost it even further. So like, yeah, you can't helping hand a Goldango, but Power Spot is just passive, so it's just an extra, what, 30% or 20? I think it's 25%.
It's 30, yeah.
Is it 30?
It's Life Orb, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's basically like Stone Jura. I don't know how many people say this, but this thing is literally all the Ruin Pokemon in one.
Yeah.
Well, just the offensive ones, I guess. So this is Chiyu and Chiempao. How do people not pick this thing?
I don't know. I miss those 2 months so much. Anyways.
Yes. But yeah, with that being said, just so we don't kind of like dawdle on about like teams and stuff, and I kind of addressing that at me. But yeah, man, you got Prankster Tailwind. You've got a couple of Trick Room options. Not the best, but you know, this team doesn't exactly want to go slow. You got crazy spread damage, lots of high base power moves. Like Eruption, Close Combat. You've got the Baxcalibur just with the Glaive Rush and stuff, and Moonblast. Like, this team is going to win very quickly if you're not careful. So yeah, I also noticed the most important thing on this team, you ended up getting the father-son duo.
Typhlosion, you know, fun fact, my favorite starter line of all time is Typhlosion, so, you know, I have to represent in any way that I can. So
Okay, so
know.
you can't, if you're going to be on this podcast, you can't make it so easy to fact check you like that, because literally less than 24 hours ago, you said Samurott was your favorite starter.
I
Remember
said
when I
it
didn't
was
care?
one of. I said it was one of my favorite starter lines. The favorite starter line is Typhlosion.
Someone fact checked him. Fact check him.
Yeah, yeah, no.
I don't know. I actually don't remember what you said, but I think it'd be really funny if you
exactly.
just contradicted yourself.
Oh, that's what I said. I said, oh my goodness. Okay. Well,
Whoever didn't
anyways.
pick this in Gen 2, you're a psychopath. Like, this is literally the coolest Pokemon ever. Like,
Oh yeah, and everybody was like, "Oh, Charizard," and I was like, "No, Typhlosion."
the stats are so much better on the Gen 2 starter than the Gen 1 starter.
Yeah, I think that's ironic because they have the exact same stats, don't they? Pretty
Really?
much. Hey, wait, isn't that true?
Yeah, it is true.
I was like, I'm pretty sure it's the same. I think that's the ironic.
The sarcasm's
Oh,
at new levels on this show, but anyway. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, this team's pretty cool. Like, I think you got a couple of different techs on this thing. You got your Prankster, you got your Fake Out Inner Focus, which is a really nice combo. You got your two cores. You've got crazy offense. You don't have a whole lot of defensive play. I think there are some weeks that you could do it, but you got your ways of stopping Trick Room, playing in Trick Room, and things like that. Toadscruel, I think, is going to be your sneaky kind of like dark horse on this team.
Yeah, I think Special Ground is something that can be kind of overlooked as not being like too good, but I think it's something that doesn't exist very often, so it can catch players off guard if you're like, oh shoot, because most people prep for physical ground, but Special Ground is something that can be sneaky. So yeah, I'm excited to use it. I know that the special attack set isn't the highest, but I think its speed tier is fine, especially in this format. And special attack 80 to me is kind of probably the worst you can be without.
It's usable. Yeah.
It's not that
with stabs.
80, correct, and there's stabs, so that's why I'm good with that. I do plan on making a couple. Those bottom three are probably gonna end up moving before week 1, but
you're not keeping Cyndaquil. You're gonna put your son up for adoption in week 1. Like, jeez.
Yeah. Unfortunately, yeah, we're gonna have to. I'm more of a tough love, so go out and find your own way in life type thing.
Take him to the glue factory.
Yeah, exactly. It'll build some character. It has to go to
Yeah.
Typhlosion Valley. Anyways.
The next time you see that Cyndaquil, you're gonna see the what's it called, the Pokemon ZA come out, and there's gonna be Mega Typhlosion, and this thing's gonna come back as a Mega Typhlosion.
And then I'm gonna hug it with open arms and be like, "See, wasn't that fun?"
Yep, made you better. Do you have any final comments about your own team before we go on to the next one? Because we got 12 teams today. The first one was like an hour and a half video, and and it was only 10 teams. We got 12, so we have to be really. We could talk for hours about Pokemon just super easily. So.
So I think overall, I think this might be the strongest draft my favorite draft that I've ever had. I think it has a good balance of physical attackers and special attackers.
I agree.
And Goldengo is just probably one of the most ridiculous Pokemon of all time. I would count on a scale of if we were doing the tiering. I know everybody likes those tiers. I would probably put it. I don't know if it's an S tier. I don't know if I'm being biased, but I do think this team is pretty S tier, given that it can do what it does. It does very, very well in being uber aggressive, hyper offensive. So I would give this team an S tier draft, just being very objective. I know that there's a lack of Trick Room, which makes that sort of like that's kind of a weird.
It has enough though. I think it has enough. Like some people have none.
Correct, and this team just wants to deny Trick Room and doesn't want to play in Trick Room, and I think it has the tools to do that.
Yeah, good luck setting it up.
Yeah, and I am going to pick up some things that I already have submitted that will help with that. So, I'm going to go ahead and just call this team probably an S tier, given it's got a good balance core. It will have Intimidate after I make that switch, so it's going to have pretty much everything you're asking for: Wide Guard, Fake Out, all that kind of stuff. So, I don't know. Yeah, that's my take on it. I don't know if you have a rating to give it. You can be purely objective on it, but.
Well, yeah, and I think people listening have to just remember that when somebody's rating their own team, like a lot of people, if everything went well and they see the way the team plays, and obviously I think objectively this team is very good. I think very few people would say this isn't very good, but I would also say that just with a grain of salt, like a lot of people think their team is very good. I've had teams that I've drafted and went, yeah, this team's amazing. I got exactly what I wanted. So in theory, it's amazing. And then in practicality, when the season plays out, it just didn't come together. So I've said I've had the best team in the draft after a draft, and then it just didn't go well, and then sometimes it did. It went incredibly well. So it's all in the eye of the beholder. But I think that there's no reason why anybody should put this anything lower than an A tier. Just because you have so much offense and you have your cores. Like, I guess a hard trick room team might give this team a hard time if it's set up properly. If somebody drafted hard trick room, which we'll kind of go over the teams as we go and see if there is one that might challenge. But then that team might be this one, but lose to other ones because it's too hard of a trick room, right? So, but yeah, so we'll have to see how the season plays out. That's why the games aren't played on paper, and we'll see how it goes. But nice job with the draft. Go Toad Squirrel. But moving on to Shadow's team. Let's just change that. I think it's just masculine white. Yeah. So this team, you actually got. It's funny that this is second because you got sniped on the Salamence, literally pick 2, which kind of turned your draft on its head.
Yeah. Salamence Dragonite was on my just for typing because it switched so well into Gold Dango. But
I have a hard time seeing how this team is going to play on the field. I think I see a lot of pieces, which I think Shadow did a pretty good job. Like Shadow, I'm just going to call him out because, it really hurt. He showed up a day late to the draft. He basically sent, if anybody wasn't paying attention during the draft, Shadow being one of them, he literally, so then 8-hour timer, he sent me a pic. I have the screenshot and receipt of it. He sent me Salamence at 7 hours 59 minutes into his timer.
That's crazy.
And he grabbed the Salamence, and then I just picked the rest of it. So he didn't get sniped once, I don't think. I think everything on this is exactly what he sent me, and it all worked out for him. So there might have been flips. Like, he might have picked Sneasler before Rotom, or vice versa, or whatever, or Venomoth. I forget what it was, but I think he got everything he wanted. So just another example of he probably is very happy with this, but I don't really see how the team plays. I see the Trick Room setup. He's got 3 really nice Trick Room mons that do different things. 2 of them, what I personally like in a Trick Room sweeper is one that also sets up itself. So the fact that he's got the Hatterene that does both, and like you grab Indeedee, you set Trick Room, okay, great. Now when it's on, it's going. You're not really using it yourself. So I like the fact that he got Slowbro can work. Iron Defense, Body Press, and just 100 special attack is usable. So I in the Rhyperior, I'm curious to see how Rhyperior is going to do. I don't think anyone's really leaned on it. Do you remember?
No, I don't think anyone's ever used it that well or used that heavily.
Like in Dynamax, it was really big. I know Tevis, he had a pretty good season with it when he was doing it in Dynamax and stuff like that. And I think I feel like Great Marsh might have used it. I forget, but Lightning Rod on this team could work with the Slowbro, but I don't really know why you're defending Slowbro. You kind of want that thing to set it and go. What I really like about Slowbro in Gen 9 is the fact that you can put a Covert Cloak on this thing and then just bulk it out like crazy. Maybe a Defensive Terra, Covert Cloak, and it has Oblivious. So you can't taunt it, fake it out, or kill it most of the time. So
yeah, I agree.
It's almost as guaranteed of a Trick Room as you're going to get. So I do really like the Slowbro as a piece. How expensive was it? Was it like 6 points or 7 points?
I want to say it was like 7. Yeah, that sounds about right.
I think that's 6. Fair. Like, that's not overspending.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then you got the Salamence with the Rhyperior, and so, like I do like this team. What's your kind of take on it so far?
I think this team is actually pretty decently constructed. I think this is a pretty heavy Trick Room team. And one of the things you want on a Trick Room team is a Pokemon that can be very disruptive, and I think that Umbreon fits that role very well.
Oh yeah.
And Salamence to a draft start is pretty good. I know historically it's kind of a hit and miss. It's been really popular in VGC, but it's hit and miss in draft league because it kind of has that like no man's land where it doesn't do anything particularly well, so it's hard. But that's also kind of its strength. It's Intimidate Mon that has pretty decent attacking stats. Hatterene was the interesting part that I'm curious to see how he uses it, because I know you always look at it and you're like, damn, this thing's good. But then sometimes when you use it, it can be a little bit underwhelming, mostly probably because its main fairy stab move is a spread type move and it doesn't get Moonblast. For good reason. And that thing's special attack is, 136 is pretty busted. But I do like the synergy of those 3 mons there with Hatterene, Rhyperior, Slowbro. And he's got redirection with Venomoth, so which is good because I immediately I thought I saw those 3 mons together. I'm like, okay, you need redirection because Indeedee would have been fantastic on this team, but probably wasn't available or probably just didn't fit points wise.
Yeah.
But the thing that I will kind of say about this team is this team feels like it can get overwhelmed. It doesn't have anything that can start. This team doesn't seem to have a mode that can start trading. That's my only sort of complaint because Rhyperior is a very good mon, but I think it has a high skill cap because it has 55 special defense. So I think positioning is very important for that mon because you can slap an assault vest on it, but I mean, if you face an Intimidate mon, it can quickly become like, dang, this team doesn't really feel that strong because Rock and Ground are very good stab type attacks, but I think that that's going to be a bit of a challenge for him to navigate. And then I do like his Firewater Grass core. It's a very tricky one because Slowbro has a lot of weaknesses. It's a very good mon, but it has a lot of weaknesses. So again, you have to be very careful about how you position these mons. And Rotomo is a grass type, but it's also kind of an awkward grass type. So
Only having
so
Leaf
yeah,
Storm, yeah.
yeah, it only has Leaf Storm, but I think Salamence and Hatterene were I'm assuming this is how the draft started. I think that was a great start to the draft, and
Yeah.
um, he's I think he's got enough here to support. He's got the fake out with the Sneasel Hisui. I think I'm gonna put him onto that mon. That mon's absolutely busted. I'm just a big fan of the Sneasel lines. So,
Mm-hmm.
but and then Lycanroc Dusk is cool. I've faced that thing. I think I've lost. I think Pumpkin might have beat me with it before. It's cool. It sneaks up on you when you don't expect it. Again, I just think this team might get overwhelmed a little bit because I think it can be a bit frail in its attacking options, other than maybe Rhyperior, obviously. But I mean, I think it's a generally rounded team. I don't know what Basculin does for me, but everybody else on this team, I'm like, okay, I can see it. So yeah, this is a pretty good team, and
It's
curious to
okay.
see how.
I think
It's
it's
curious to
okay.
see. It's yeah, I guess pretty good's a little thing. So if you were to ask me for its rating, I would probably give it a B maybe or a C plus. I would kind of where I'm at. It's sort of in that range. Because I think it's kind of missing. It needs a little bit of a go mode that can kind of like you know threaten somebody from just overwhelming you with pure offense. And I don't think this team has wide guard, does it?
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
you brought
So
up wide guard as well. I do think wide guard kind of hurts his team a bit too, with like rock slide spam, earthquake spam, D-gleam. You're not really
yeah,
expanding, forcing muddy water on Slowbro, things like that. Snarl, Umbreon,
yeah,
E-web. So I think be careful. I think having the Sneasel too. I think it gets faint, doesn't it? Oh, Blaziken does for
yeah,
sure. So yeah, I think faint is going to be nice some weeks. I think he might have to be a little careful of that if you have like a really popular wide guard user rather than just one that may or may not like some things get it, but you're probably not running it. But
yeah,
I do think wide guard is a little bit of an issue. I think the most annoying lead is obviously the Trick Room lead, but I think Umbreon Salamence could be a nice lead as well.
yeah.
And Umbreon just being really annoying. That thing is going to be really important, though, to protect the Slowbro and the Hatterene. Like, if your ways of getting Trick Room up are both weak to Ghost, so, yeah.
Yeah.
You're going to
Yeah.
need that Umbreon to work overtime for this team, so which we've seen it do,
Yeah.
so that's good. Yeah, I'd probably C+ to B-. I'd probably put this, maybe like
Okay.
69% out of 100, whatever, rating,
Yeah.
Nothing significant
Yeah.
about that number at all, but,
Totally fair. Yeah. I think Unreal will have to put in work on this team. So yeah, I agree with that.
Mm-hmm. And like a Rock Dusk is interesting, but yeah, like maybe you could set Sand. I don't know. Like I guess never mind. That's the wrong Lycanroc. But Tough Claws is pretty strong. Whatever. That's enough about this team. Yeah, we gave it its rating. I've seen you have better drafts. I've seen you have worse drafts. So like when it comes to Shadow, so nice job me for drafting him a good team.
Yeah.
Another one last dig into Shadow because I drafted this team for him because he wasn't there. Anyway, Squirtle Squad. The Squirtle Squad. Looking at this team, the fact that like you have your Annihilate, and then you have like a bunch of secondary offense options. Like there's not really a lot on this team like that's like super threatening out of the box. Like even Annihilate, like it's got 115 attack. This team is not hitting hard out of the box. Like this needs to set up. It needs to like kind of stall you out longer games. So depending on who you're facing with this team, I think this team can grind you out if you're not careful. Maybe, some coaching stuff with Riolu or Annihilate can coach as well, as we saw at in Baltimore. But yeah, man, I think that like this team is gonna have a hard time getting going. Like if somebody has a team like yours or something like that, just tailwind spread damage, this team's gonna have a hard time with it. What do you think?
Yeah, my immediate concern looking at this team is there's lack of damage output. I think the highest you have on either is 115 and 120. Not saying that, those are low, but those are, I think for those stats, I think those are like kind of the lowest before you can start saying that's a really good attack stat. It's just good. 115 is good and 120 is just good.
Well, you got the
So
120 though. The one after that is
you won't.
105. That's the problem. Is
So,
you have your Hydra
yeah.
Apple, but that's it.
Yeah, there is a drop off. The Among Us, I see what this team is trying to do a little bit. I mean, I think it's very reliant around Annihilate, and which is valid. I mean, Annihilate again, dual stabs that are not resisted by any type in the game. So I think the Among Us is cool. I know that thing never gets drafted. It's always one of those S tier mons, but it's one of those mons that you can't really justify putting lower because it just what it does is just so broken inherently.
Hmm.
But I do worry that four grass types on one team is a bit much in terms of a flying weakness. And I mean, while grass types are very useful, they do have that drawback, or they do have a ton of weaknesses. So I'm not sure that this team has enough to support that. And also given that there's no dragon on this team, well, there's one dragon on this team, but you would like your dragons to be very type resistant to things, and Hydrapple's got a lot of type weaknesses. I'm a big Sneasel guy. This team has a lot of fake out. It's got one Intimidate Mon, which is good, but I just think this team has a bit of an identity issue. It doesn't really know what it wants to be. It's very centered around, well, I guess I do know what it wants to be. It wants to be very centered around Annihilate, but I
Well,
think versatility might be
Sneasel
kind
does
of
get beat up as well. So I do
right.
think a very underrated draft league setup for Annihilate with the beat up is the Sneasel, because yeah, the typing doesn't work out super great, but you can fake out bulk up turn one, you can icy win bulk up, you can icy win attack, you can side beat up, go for damage. Like I feel like that's probably the lead that he's gonna go with most weeks. That is really strong. You can't fake out either of them, which is really cool. And then Riolu just coaching whatever the hell it wants.
Hmm.
I don't know if the Talonflame fits on this team, which is funny. Normally Talonflame fits with many things. Like you do like maybe like water spout stuff with Blastoise, but I don't know what you're really gonna do without Rain and this 85 special attack stat. So like
I
yeah,
think
Talonflame. Oh, Bramblegas is just chilling there. Okay, that's another mode. All right, I'm starting to see a little bit of stuff here.
right. I was gonna say I think the other kind of thing that I'm starting to kind of see is Talonflame, Blastoise, and Brambleghast. You can kind of do a fire water grass offensive core with that, and just set up Tailwind and start kind of exerting a lot of pressure with elemental hits. Um, so yeah, I do see this team struggling against a well positioned dragon or fairy type.
Yeah.
Given there's no steel or dragon type on this team, because again, I'm a big proponent of it. You kind of got to get as close as possible to your fire, water, grass, and still very steel dragon course. So I think this team might struggle a little bit against well positioned teams, but this team has enough to make you think. It's a very thought provoking team that I do think will be. Has to be careful because positioning it can get away from you really quickly with teams like this. So falling behind in terms of momentum can be tricky. So yeah, I'm curious to see how this team works. It's got a lot of anti stuff, anti trick room with Mungus, and it's got anti speed stuff with Brambleghast, and so then it can kind of do weird stuff to you with Annihilate and Sneasel, and beat up also Brambleghast gets beat up,
Yeah,
which
this
is not
team's
very
this team's going
fun thing.
first.
So yeah, this team has to try to fight to stay on top of positioning, because yeah, this team will make it very hard because it's not the bulkiest of teams, so it will struggle to maintain to weather the storm in terms of positioning. So yeah, if I were to give this team an overall grade, I would probably give it a C, maybe a C minus. I think this team needed a little bit more of a pop. I mean, Thwacky's cool, but um, it's obviously not Rillaboom in terms of what it can offer you offensively, and also just the abundance of grass types. I just don't think I ever like to see more than two grass types on a team is a little ridiculous. So I would probably give this team, yeah, C minus, maybe C minus is probably where I would put it. So if we were doing a chart, I would probably, if I had to pick between C and D, I'd probably give this team a D. So
Yeah, like I'm not quite sure where to go. I see a lot of stuff on this team that does a lot of things, and that's probably the most lame take ever. A lot of stuff that does a lot of things. I do think that one transaction could really make the world up to this team. I don't know what it would be. I think the Talonflame with the Bramblegast, if you can give it one other Tailwind abuser, just out of the box, I think this team would do a lot. I do, and it's nice because your team is mostly physical for the most part. Like when it comes to like you got the Malamar with the snowballing kind of contrary superpower stuff, which is a little scary. Like I think Riolu, you coach that thing and it gets a superpower off in the same turn. Now you're +2 in both. That thing could get out of hand if it's Assault Vest. So I like this team could do some things, but I think it might be one, maybe two moves away from kind of really doing some damage. Maybe the Thwacky can go because I don't think the terrain super helps you. But if you can swap out the Thwacky for maybe like a budget Tailwind abuser, I think this team would go probably from a C- for me to maybe a solid B.
Nice.
Because I do think the Annihilate combo with the beat up is so strong that it's going to do a lot of the lifting on this team. So if teams are ready for it, it's going to be tough. Setting it up in the back row could be really nice as well. Like imagine like a Sneasel lead with, say, Blastoise or something like that. And then you just kind of side beat up and hard switch and, catch them on a Protect or something like that. Now you're cooking.
Yep.
So I think this team, I think what I was thinking as you were talking was, just before we wrap up this team, is I'm going to take a quote from Wolfie where he says, let your team work for you rather than you work for your team. This player is going to have to work for their team pretty hard. There's a lot of really good teams out there that we're going to get to, and I think this one might be a little overwhelmed. But, player compensates for it. We see it every season. So,
absolutely.
But I guess, so we kind of gave it a rough rating. So let's go on to Mantine Mayhem. Eli is the defending champion of Ultra Ball.
Nice.
So congrats to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say like mother-daughter kind of thing with Meganium and Chikorita, but Bayleaf, I guess, is the teenager, single mom with 2 kids. I don't know, I guess.
Yeah.
Maybe. And the Ndidi too, like it's kind of got single mom vibes over here. I'm going to get comments for that.
Yeah, I smell what you're stepping in. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what this team was really like going at. Like you've got, man, this team really doesn't want to go. Like you got Palmot Tauros. This team is like Trick Room or nothing. And 2 fighting types like Palmot and Paldea Tauros. I just don't get it.
Well, I think this team is a pretty strong wants to get into Trick Room. I think it's a little awkward because one of your Trick Room setters does not need Fake Out, but that's okay because it can do Follow Me stuff. So I think this team is gonna really have that one mode with Ursaluna, which is a very very good Pokemon because it's one of the best at what it does.
Indeed, Reuniclus, Ursaring, or Ursaluna is just, you have to be ready for that, and then the Gudra Hisui,
Tauros Blaze is cool. It's got really. I think I got sniped on that too. This guy sniped me pretty early on the Tauros Blaze. I did want that thing. It's cool. It's got the Intimidate. It's bulkier than you expect. It's that's a good dual stab typing. Palmot's cool. It's got the Fake Out support. Volt Absorb. It's got that move that you can bring people back, Revival Blessing, or Pokemon back.
Yeah, wish from the Dragon Balls.
Yeah, exactly. DD Female's got your terrain, and it's got Follow Me, which is cool. So the Gudra Hisui is probably the most interesting. It's
expensive.
It's an expensive mon that I think looks really nice because it's kind of a stat filler on paper. You're like, damn, this thing looks cool when you see its stats. It's 100, 100, 110, 150. But I think it's another one of those mons that has a high skill cap to use. Because while it does have all of those stats, it can become a little bit overwhelmed because it takes a second or two to get going. And when I mean a second or two, it can take around a turn or two to get going. And so, I think it might be a little tricky. I do like that it's a Dragon Steel. I think that typing is just really, really nice. And speaking to the Fire Water Grass thing, this team does have a Fire Water Grass core. I'm not completely like sold on what Meganium does as a grass type. I think there's grass types that can fit its role a little bit better, and also Bayleaf and Chikorita are just LOLs. I get that.
It was pretty cheap, like the Meganium.
Yeah. And Reuniclus is really really cool. That mon can with Life Orb can go ham really bad because it might like as a Magic Guard. So it can really set some pressure. And Araquanid's a really sneaky pick. I think that mon's really cool. I don't think this team is very afraid of burns. So it's one of those mons that like, oh, it's really good against teams that, my team wants to get burned. Barcelona wants to be burned. And Toros Pablo-Blaze can't get burned. And, really only leaves Palmat and Gudra Hisui. So it does have sort of that nice synergy with that. And Bugwater's a sneaky typing that it's tough to remove.
Yeah, the
I do
Araquanid.
I do see this team struggling against cores that have good fairy dragon steel cores. Because I do think, well, I mean, fairy and dragon in particular, you can see on the type chart is kind of a namesake and flying, but yeah, I think this team is kind of it is lacking that again that instant like pow just off the bat like ready to go boom like just offers you a mode that you can just out of the box just oh my gosh what am I going to do about it. So but yeah, I mean Trick Room is something that does that inherently, so I think it'll be interesting to see how this team navigates its ways. I think it might be a little one-dimensional in terms of or two-dimensional in terms of what it wants to do, right? Either it wants to set up Trick Room or it wants to redirect with Indeedee female and maybe set something up. Um, so so yeah, I mean Gudra that's something being Gudra Hisui. So you can do something with Indeedee female, you can just leave Gudra Hisui, follow me and then set up with its +2 and then Indeedee goes down, Palmat comes in, fake out support type stuff. Or, with Psychic Train, obviously I get it, but so yeah, I think this team might have a bit of trouble in terms of synergy. Fighting types are really good in Draft League, but I think it might be a bit of a struggle in terms of what you can hit offensively. So it'll be cool. I mean, Ursaluna again, a team. It's kind of hard because like these are two teams in a row where you see an Ursaluna and then the team before you saw Annihilate, and you're like, how does that team not? Well, I mean, I think that those two mons are really good on paper, but you really have to build a team that does other things that can kind of support it. And I'm not quite sure that this team shores up enough of what that team doesn't want to get, of what Ursaluna doesn't want to deal with. So, so yeah, I just giving this team an overall score, for my opinion, I would probably give it a C, C plus. If I had to rate it in one of those little tiers, I would put it as a C tier, as a C team. Yeah, I mean, it might be me not understanding setup and Trick Room, but
it is strong. Like the mode itself is like if you wanted to get hard Trick Room, this is as hard as it's gonna hit. So I don't like the fact that it's one-dimensional, like you were saying. One thing that I think this team could use, I'm not sure where you'd find it. I was just kind of looking at the tier list on my other window here, just like how to add something to threaten Terra Ghost would really, really make that Gudra Hisui a menace. Because obviously this thing is one of the best Iron Defense body press mons ever.
Yeah.
So the fact that you can use Iron Defense body press, like if they just go Terra Ghost, like Terra Ghost looks pretty good into this team with the Tauros, the Facade Ursaluna, the body press stuff. So if you can grab like either a dark type or a ghost type that can hit offensively, I was looking at maybe Saraledge, but maybe swapping out the Tauros or whatever it is, but I'm not sure. Yeah, something to just give them something to think about, like, and there still is time. This video is probably going to go live tomorrow, which is Saturday. So there's still time to put in some moves, but I do think that this team probably, you got to think how your team wants to play against you, so it's just like, so like face value, what do you see? You see ground and facade, on the Ursaluna. You see fake out, you see the psychic terrain with expanding force, and you see iron defense body press. So how does this team want to operate? So it's like, okay, well, iron defense body press, Terra Ghost is just fantastic against two of those things. So you got to give your opponent something to really think about when they're choosing their Terras. So I'm not saying they're not going to bring Terra Ghost against him. I'm just saying, like, make it more difficult to click that button and lock in that decision. So same thing with like expanding force, Terra Dark. Like they've got Palmat and Tauros there. I like that. You want to go Terra Dark to stop the E-Force? Well, best of luck. So I do kind of see where this team is going. I think you can make more use of your one-pointers. I know he's got 3 throwaways kind of thing. But I do think you can make... There's a few things in the 1-point tier that are niche uses. You might get 1 week out of, maybe 2. But they're just... He's never using those things. Maybe Bayleaf. I thought Bayleaf was okay. It had some time in the sun. But yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. I'd probably rate this team on the lower end, probably just a solid C. Just because I think it's one-dimensional. It could use some more pieces, but The Ndidi Reuniclus is cool. You got some good pieces there as well. It's just I feel like this is kind of 2/3 of a team, you know.
Yeah,
But
exactly. Yep.
and the stats could use some love, but but anyway. So yeah, sorry. No, again, you know, he's a champ, Ultra Bowl champ last season. You know, so
Yeah,
what can we say?
yeah,
He knows what he's doing.
yeah.
So um,
Definitely forward to see him.
so I feel like Portland Cedros is always my favorite to win Ultra Bowl and just hasn't gotten it done yet. And this team looks like it can do it. Like I see some stuff on this team. This is a very well-rounded team in my opinion, I think. Like what are your first
Yeah,
thoughts? I've been talking for a bit.
yeah. No, I immediately liked the type chart. He paid attention to that, which is good.
Oh, I
I
didn't even
mean,
see
which
that.
is a
That is nice.
yeah, yeah. He's got no straight up weaknesses. So he I also took the Hydreigon that I was almost looking at
Your
that I thought
backup's
was similar.
backup?
My backup. So all the dragons went right away. So yeah, that was a fantastic start. Um, yeah, I mean, Hydreigon's really good. It's one of the better special attackers, especially in this format. I mean, it's got a lot of stab moves. Salazzle is very, very nice. He also sniped me. This guy also sniped me on the Salazzle that I wanted. Thank you so much. All my snipes are coming up now. Now that I'm saying them. It's got the fake out. It's got fake tears. It's a very versatile mon. It gets dragon cheer, so that you got to watch out for that dragon cheer Hydreigon strat.
Yep.
Uh, Mimikyu is just one of the coolest mons. Like
Probably the
it's
best
just it's
probably the best Trick Room setter ever. Like it gets a
it's
free sub.
it's yeah, it's definitely up there with it to fit that role. I mean, Fairy Ghost is such a cool typing. I mean, Fluttermane. Yeah, don't talk to me like that, Fluttermane.
Like you have to hit it
And
twice. Like there aren't many Trick
definitely
Room setters
twice.
that you have to like open team sheet, close team sheet. You have to hit this thing twice if you don't want Trick Room to go up.
Correct. Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
so and you can't fake it out, and you know I man, remember when they didn't nerf it and the disguise didn't chunk your HP, so people just went disguise Mimikyu with Focus Sash, and then it was just like a guaranteed Trick Room every time.
It's so dumb. Yeah, I mean, I think the only way you can stop it is in prison, but that thing's pretty fast, and I believe gets in prison itself. Oh no, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't. But
No.
it's just this thing. It's just yeah, Mimikyu is just really there's so many good pieces on this team,
hmm
and the Braviary. Okay, I see what you're doing there. The Laurentis Caparage I think is really nice. Um,
Yes, it
in
gives
Trick
you it
Room.
gives you immediate pop in Trick Room, and I can tell this guy was trying to go for his Fire Water Grass core, and Fairy Steel Dragon core, which I'm almost positive because while they are nice pieces, I think they look kind of like a little awkward. Given that this team doesn't want to primarily play in Trick Room, but it gives you a mode, so it does give you something to think about as a player. Like, oh man, if he gets up Trick Room, like the Knights and Caparaj are gonna wreak some havoc. Electivire is cool. It's always a mon that you're like, oh, you know, dang, that's it's interesting because it's fast enough. Its defense is kind of not good, but him on top is there, so you can always see something like him on top of Electivire and just kind of its move pool is quite diverse, so you can kind of go from there, which is really cool. Swampert's just it's vanilla. It's cool. It's got just don't let it touch the grass, but it's a gamer.
Yeah.
Um, and Grumpig is interesting. So yeah, I don't think there's a lot of wasted space on this team. So I think this is a really well
Yep.
constructed team in general. I mean, it's got pretty much a lot of different tools: intimidate, fake out, trick room, solid cores. Decent synergy amongst these mons that they all can kind of help each other out, do what they want to do. So we'll see. Bravery is interesting. I guess my only maybe sort of knock on this team is I don't see a fast tailwind. I know the speed tiers for that
Hydreigon,
Hydreigon.
Braviary, I guess.
It,
Yeah, like
it's
it's
fast, 98, 80. So I can see it, maybe struggling against a sort of a faster aggressive team, but I think this team is balanced enough where I think it has the tools to definitely handle what it needs to handle. Hydreigon Swampert is such a synergistic lead that I think is pretty underlooked. So yeah, no, I definitely thought this person did a good job.
yeah, I agree. Testing is usually my favorite to win Ultra Ball since coming
Yeah.
into the league, just because really
Yeah.
solid player, really solid dude. So, yeah, I'd
Yeah.
probably rate this team probably maybe just shy of yours. Like if there was like an A, this is probably an A minus. Probably put it
Yeah,
right
I,
there.
I I would honestly probably give this team an S. I
You'd put
think
this
I
above
think it
yours?
Well, my team's S in my opinion, but
Oh yeah, I
I
thought we didn't do it in this, but
think
yeah.
I think this team is right in parallel with mine. I think it's got enough aggression and enough tools to kind of be next to it. Again, I just think the knock on this one is just again you don't have that instant just pop with the tailwind attack bomb. Yes, Hydreigon could fill that role, but your tailwind might be a little rough. You have the fake out to make up for it, but yeah, I would. That's the only thing that I would say I don't like that this team doesn't have. And there's no redirection. I don't think this team wants to function with hyper offensive anyways. So I think you'll be okay because redirection teams do or hyper offensive teams do want to have redirection, and I don't think this team qualifies as a hyper offensive team. It's more of that middle
Yeah, it's a nice
um,
balanced team, I think.
balance. It's like a balance of a balanced team. So yeah, I think this team can go off. It's cool. So yeah, I'll give it a solid. I'll probably give it an S. I think it's an S tier.
Oof, that's generous. No, I can't disagree with your point. So that's I like it, and I see a lot of ones down here. Has basically every stab except for rock
Yeah,
and bug
yeah,
offensively. So this team's gonna hit any way it chooses without Terra, which is really nice. Um,
yep, yep.
but yeah, so Lost City Lurkers is the next team we've got, which is Tommy's team. Um, I see a lot of Eviolite on this team. One, two, three, four. Electabuzz is basically exclusively using it for the most part. Um,
hmm
but I do think, see, Poliwhirl back in the day with Kyogre was really nice because like Kyogre set the rain and was able to use it very well, obviously with the water spout and stuff like that. I don't know if
hmm
Pelipper has that same effect. Even in a format like this, I don't know if Pelipper's strong enough in this format to kind of I guess support the whole using of Pelipper Poliwhirl. So
hmm
I yeah, if I'm sitting here picking off the one of the lowest tier mons he has, this has to be a good team right off the bat. Um, like if my first knock is your lowest tier, it's looking pretty good. Obviously this is rain. Obviously you've got your Volbeat. I love the Volbeat on this team, by the way.
Yeah.
Like I think Volbeat on this team that makes it so that tailwind slot on Pelipper doesn't have to be there. You can run Weather Ball, Wide Guard, Protect if you wanted it one week. You don't need the
hmm
tailwind, so Volbeat can kind of set it itself. It allows the Archaludon to like you can go tailwind Protect turn one and then just switch in the Pelipper and start doing your super fast Electro shots. I think Archaludon can win a league on its own. It's that good, and it has the supporting
Yeah.
teams, the supporting Pokemon to do it. So curious to your thoughts.
Yeah, I love so our child and Pelipper. I mean, he's got that stream team right there. Because obviously he can start boosting its attacks. Palafin obviously loves to play in the rain. It's always a plus. Palafin has always been a mon that I mean, if you look at its stats, it's a legendary Pokemon. It's better than a lot of legendary Pokemon. But it does take a little bit to get again because you have to switch it in and switch it out to really use it. So it does take a little bit of the right team to support that. I think this team can do that. It's got the redirection. It's got its grass types are a little bit kind of awkward, which it does like have a grass type switching. As you famously see in VGC, it's paired with a Mungus, which is a very very bulky grass type. Not saying you need a grass type to make it work, but
It helps.
Bruxish has it helps, yeah. Bruxish is obviously its ability is nice. Electabuzz static is cool. It's very very bulky Eviolite redirection user. Follow me is just nuts with that thing. It's really really popular pick right now, especially in VGC and Reg H. Hitmonleave, fake out, unburden is cool. It might have a bit of a time trying to get that off, depending on what how it wants to do it.
The Grookey, I guess.
Yeah,
Like whatever. if
yeah,
that's how he wants to get the Hitmonlee going, I guess. I don't know.
yeah, yeah. Volbeat's cool. It gives you that instant tailwind option, which is cool because it has a prankster. Grookey's Grookey. I mean, I know it's a fan favorite, but I think sometimes it can be a little underwhelming in terms of offensive
Yeah.
output. I mean, it gives you a nice choice band one hammer if you can get it off, but type thing or Eviolite, fake out, whatever. But Dragapult is the other interesting part on this team. It felt sort of like a best available mon pick. Depends on how you treat Dragapult. Dragapult's also another one of those mons that I think is one of the better draft league Pokemon. Because it can do a lot of different things. Versatility is such a big thing in terms of draft league, and it's very very versatile mon. So I like the pick. Uh, I'll give my thoughts in terms of how this team fits in a second. But in terms of Poliwhirl, it's just another Swift Swim user, Water Absorb, sure, and then Poltergeist. So Poltergeist is cool, and Navy Light Redirection user. Hospitality is a pretty nice typing. My main issue with this team is that sort of similar to what we saw before. There's a lot of type overlap, and type overlap is not necessarily a bad thing, but when it comes to draft league, it can become difficult because we have what you can bring, and when I look at this team, I see you have a bunch of water types, you have two dragon types, so it can get a little like, and if you look at your type chart, I mean, you have nothing to answer a ghost or a dragon type, which is ironic because Dragapult's there. So I'm not sure Dragapult is the greatest thing on this team. You can still lead it, you can do Palipert, Tailwind, set up screens and set up for Archuleta in the back. But I think this team might struggle a little bit with that. I just if it doesn't win the weather war, I think that it's going to have a hard time switching into each other. It just, it's weak to dragon and fairy. I mean that's hard. There's a reason that those typings are one of the big three typings. Obviously, you're good at your fire, water, grass. I mean, if you look at it, you're stacked against that. But other than that, I think you might struggle on the back end of that. So that I will say, I think is too big of a knock for me to overlook. While this team looks like it can be pretty aggressive, I think it hits a lot very similarly. Um, so yeah.
So yeah, is
So
probably my analysis of this
yeah,
team as well. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Just all right. I'll give it the rating so we can
so
kind of
we,
move that
so we
on.
can move on,
Yeah,
and then you can tag out and tag in your substitution. Let's call it a tag
yeah,
team wrestling match or whatever it is. You just tag in your replacement
correct,
Aaron T. Marshall, who has kindly agreed to
correct.
help finish this video because you're technically working right now, right?
Yeah, yeah. I am. I'm getting paid for this. Yeah, yeah.
What a nice
Um,
job. So take your time with your rating because like I know you said you had to go in a little bit, but just make sure you finish your thought. Whatever you make, go out with a bang because this is your best one, your last one, and then we can kind of finish it off with someone who knows a whole lot more.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Definitely. And funny enough, his team is coming up, which is funny.
Oh, that is
Um,
funny. Yeah, yeah. Next, okay, cool, 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 cool.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, I don't really have much else to say about this team. I mean, it's got the wide guard stuff. I mean, which I like. It's got fake out. It doesn't have intimidate. No. No. Does it have fire, water, grass core? Yes, but it's not a very strong yes. Actually, no. I'm sorry, I didn't see a fire type on this team. Yeah, so no.
Well,
My-
what beats the Archaludon just in general? Like Sacred Sword users
mm,
is big, Haze users, I guess, and like fighting and ground, right? Pretty much, I'd say like
correct.
not all of those things, but
Correct.
so can this team deal with it? Like if you go all in on the Arch, if you're an opponent looking at this team, you go all in on that Archaludon, and it's just out of the box Archaludon. You got your standard AV set, whatever it is, maybe a power, whatever, if that's what you want to do. But it's got the rain, so whatever. Can this team stop the things that hurt Archaludon? Like, does he have the pieces to do it, or can he just lean on this thing the entire season?
Yeah, this team can. I mean, because again, you can lead Dragapult, start setting up screens, and then the team thing becomes almost unkillable. You bring in Pelipper, and then it just starts, getting its special attack up, and then you have wide guard with him only in case anybody wants to come in there and start snarling. But I do foresee a water type coming in here with Haze, and then the only thing you have is Electabuzz. But this team, Archaludon's inherently weak to ground also. So Electabuzz and Archaludon might have a hard time with that. So I think it might be tricky because a Haze user here really this team does not like Haze at all.
Hmm.
And it doesn't have really much to threaten a water type that can just come in here while position wise. He does have two really good water types though. So I mean it's kind of like, well, what are the other Haze users? I mean there's a Primarina in a format, there's a Vaporeon in the format. I mean there's things that can, and Archaludon does get a lightning move or electric move to hit it. So I think this team is very well positioned to support Archaludon. I worry that that's kind of your only sort of
Yeah.
mode. And I just think what you're trying to hit other Pokemon with, I think might get a little awkward because this team really loves to hit with water moves, dragon moves, um, ghosts and some steel, kind of, I guess, because of our Chaladon, but I think you're going to struggle when you come up with a team that has a very, very decent Dragon and Fairy Core, which I want to say a lot of the teams that we've talked about
They
have
do,
it.
yeah.
So I think that that's why this team will probably struggle to get off the ground a lot of the times because as good as our Chaladon Pelipper is, that's such a really good mode to have. Um, I think that it will be a little bit tricky if they seem to get going. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think he does have the right support for the Archaladon. Like I do like it. Um yeah, I will say something though. Like I'm glad he ended up getting the Pelipper and not having to settle for say Politoed because Pelipper is such a good switch in for the Archaladon itself.
yeah,
And because ground and fighting moves are usually on the physical side, like we were talking about how valuable special ground is. Special
yeah,
fighting and special ground are very nice, and the fact that Pelipper has such a high defense stat already, it can switch in pretty easily and almost just dust it off, right? So I do like a play with our Chaladon Pelipper. It's probably coming every single week. Um,
mhm,
and yeah, like I do think this team, it's got a bunch of really nice things. The fact that like it doesn't have the best grass type, like you can't really threaten opposing water types. Like you're setting the rain for your opponent too. We have to remember that it's a field kind of ability, right? Or a field status or whatever you want to call it. Like rain is
yeah,
whatever, a field thing.
yeah,
Um, so how do you stop them from using your rain against you? A solid grass type, and a solid electric type. So as you mentioned, Electabuzz doesn't really do it super great. You can
mhm,
run Thunder, I guess, for the high base power, but our Chaladon kind of takes care of that with the Electro Shot. But yeah, I
mhm.
do think this team could really, really like the Bruxis seems a little unnecessary. I feel like if you just went and got a grass type for that thing, or better yet, you drop the Palafin and then go get a really good grass type.
Yeah,
Like Palafin is what 9 points. Like if I just look here quickly, there's let me see, Lilligant Hisui is there. Probably not, unless you want to oppose the Sun. I think Lilligant Hisui could be interesting. Um,
yeah,
or if you went just really quick, look at other grass types. Man, they all went. Superior is an option that's available right now, which I think could fit really nicely. Or even like Arboliva. I do
mhm,
think a solid grass type that could be a good switch in for it, and you don't have to rely on the Electabuzz all the time to redirect those electric moves. So, but
yeah.
yeah, so that's probably my take on it. But as for a solid rating, just before you head out, what would you give this team?
Mm, I think also one thing I forgot to mention was that the team doesn't have a good trick room mode, so I think this team will struggle against some of the heavier trick room teams.
I completely
Um,
missed that too.
yeah, because I was
Honestly,
looking at when you mentioned, I think our believer, my mind went to trick room, and I'm like, wait a minute, this team doesn't have. It's got trick room. It can deny you trick room, which is awkward because I didn't know Bruxish can deny trick room,
yeah,
um,
and Poltergeist too.
but
Poltergeist is okay.
so it can deny it. But if trick room does go up,
I think this
I
team's
think
in a
this
bit of trouble if Trick'em goes up.
This team will struggle because it's got nothing slow that's menacing. So, yeah, I'm gonna give this team probably. Oh my goodness, it's so hard because again, look, Archaludon's there.
Yeah,
So it's like now I don't want to put Archaludon, Ursaluna, and
I'm thinking C
Annihilate.
plus. Like C plus is probably just because I feel like this team could be better.
Type overlap is just too big to overcome. I'm gonna give this team a D.
Oh,
Yeah,
holy cow.
you can't. You can't have three water types on the same team, two dragon types on the same team, with no grass. I mean, I just think that the type chart for me is just it's too much to overcome on this team. So.
Letter bombs in the mail from Rob and Lost City Lurkers.
Yeah, no, I mean, I get it. It's harsh, but like, I mean, I'm speaking objectively about what I see in terms of draft league teams. I mean, type chart's not everything, but it is something, and then having your distribution in terms of your typing is very, very important. There's no fire type on this team.
All right, here's my
So
take. Here's my take. Here's what I think you should do. If this was my team and I dropped Dragapult and grabbed Incineroar, and then I upgraded, say, Bruxish to, say, a grass type or something like that, or grabbed a Trick Room setter that's slightly better than Bruxish, what would you give this team? Would it be a major upgrade, or would it just be, it's a little bit better?
I mean, if you had the greatest Pokemon of all time on this team, yeah, I do think Incineroar over Dragapult
Because
would make this
Incineroar is
team.
available.
Wow. Okay, so if you drop Dragapult and you picked up Incineroar, I think this team becomes instantly much better. because
Yeah.
then you have a fake out mon, you have fire, you have pivot options, you have utility in terms. Yeah, I mean, we can go on about how great
And
that thing is, but
and pivoting
I
for people who, just to interrupt your thought, incredibly rudely, for for people that aren't used to running a ton of rain teams, pivoting, it doesn't have to be done just with switching, because switching is based on speed. So like the switch happens. So if you're facing, say, a Sun team, if you have your Dragon Bolt on the field and you hard switch, that switch is happening first. If you have, say, I don't know, Electabuzz on the field, well, that thing's pretty fast. I don't know, say Grookey or something like that on the field, then you switch. That switch is probably happening second. But if you use a move to pivot, like Parting Shot or U-turn or something like that, or Flip Turn like I see on this team, the switch happens after the hard switch. So it allows you to kind of keep the rain on the field as long as you want. And not to mention hard switch the Pelipper, then U-turn, then you get the Pelipper back on the field to stop the say, for example, the Prankster Sunny Days, things like that. I think pivoting is so nice on terrain teams and rain teams. Like all of those ability setting field conditions are so nice, and Incineroar does it so well. So I do think Dragapult's probably in excess, like you mentioned, the Double Dragon, but if you can go and get the first overall draft pick in the Premier Division, which, by the way, is still there, I think that would go a long way. Unless he really wants Dragapult, then have fun.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this team is fun in general, but I just think it's fun, and I'm only gonna judge it for what I see. So yeah, there's a couple moves you can do to make, but I mean, other than that, I mean, it's gonna be fun. I think when you're running rain in particular, it's all about field state, because obviously it's raining, so that affects the field and what's happening, and this team does like that a lot. So I do worry sometimes that the switch-ins aren't going to be able to cover for the pivoting options that your opponents might do to try to stop it. Switching in or changing the weather on you, or attacking the mon that wants to keep weather support up. Pelipper, so. But yeah, I think it'll be interesting. See how this team navigates it, but yeah.
Yeah, we talked a long time about this team. I'm glad it was your last one. I didn't want to go on to the next one, and then you had to go and have to cut it short. So we just kept on doing this one a little bit longer.
No worries.
But yeah, time is our enemy. So we're not gonna cut this into 2 videos. I'm just gonna kind of seamlessly transition to Aaron T. Marshall coming in now. And you know what? I'm actually gonna do a live switch because it says he's logging on right now. So I was gonna be like, "Yo, Aaron, hey," and then he would just go, "Hey," and then he would just like seamlessly come in, and then that'd be super lame. So yeah, I'm done with you. Thank you. Everybody say thank you to Adrian. Send him crazy amounts of DMs and letter bombs and stuff like that. I think we might be doing Ultra Ball later, right? Maybe.
Yes.
We got to see what time. These are not quick videos.
I'll be on there for that. Yeah, I'll be up for it. But yeah, if we can find a time, I'm down.
Yeah. So Ultra Ball, be patient, but yeah, Adrian will be back for another cartoon. So.
Yeah. LOL.
Anyway.
Thank you.
All right, guy. Yeah, thanks again. I will let you go and see you soon, or see you in another time.
Yeah. Peace.
All right, later. Okay. Welcome Aaron T. Marshall to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Hey, so we upgraded from Adrian over to Aaron T. Marshall because representative actually in the MGU All Stars for the British Pokemon League, right? Well, remember that? It was a while ago.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that was a long time ago, actually.
It was so much fun, not even playing in it, and just kind of like watching all of these amazing players just kind of go off. Like it was, yeah. Just to give people
something quite special.
Well, just to give people a context, Aaron won at the time. You were like, I don't think you lost the finals in BPL at the time. You were like the undisputed seasonal champion they had, right?
Yeah.
And Sick was winning championships everywhere, and both of you, I think, went 4-4.
Yes, yeah, we did.
Yeah, so just goes to show how competitive it was at the time. It was nuts. Like everybody was so freaking good, and I'm just like, Vitor. Oh my goodness, remember Vitor? He went off.
Yeah. Yeah. Vitor was man on a mission. He like literally just stormed at everyone.
Well, he's more of a little boy on a mission at the time, right? So
yeah, that's true. Actually,
yeah, he wasn't a man yet. He's still not a man. He's that young.
He's
like,
much
he lies more about his age than friggin' like, I don't know, a woman in show business. I don't know, like it's anyway. But without further ado, me and Adrian just finished off on half the teams. We did Lost City Lurkers, talked about the Rain team, and a couple of changes we might wanted to do. But we gave the rating pretty low. Just to give you a little bit of context, we gave the highest rated team. No surprise there is Adrian rated his team probably the highest. I said it's objectively like an A or an S because like it's got so much offense right off the bat. And then more
very
like,
high offense.
Yeah, and then the second team we kind of said was this one because it's just got a lot of nice pieces. You can kind of balance it.
Yeah.
And then you have some of the worst teams, which were just missing pieces or one-dimensional, whatever it is. So just to give you a little bit of context, but I'm kind of curious your thoughts on a lot of these things. So without further ado, this is your division actually. So you're probably excited to come back.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Like when you asked me if I wanted to come back, I just jumped at the chance because I've actually, at the start of Scarlet and Violet, I must admit, I didn't really feel great about playing the game. I mean, the game itself is full of bugs, and it still is, I think.
Very
not as many now, but it is. I couldn't really get into the whole terror thing, and I was actually struggling with it, I must admit. Like, I think I struggled a lot as a player in this, like with this new gimmick. And it's actually only been the last 6 months maybe that I've actually started to get more of a feel to it, working out like exactly how to use this gimmick properly. And I've been enjoying it more and more as of late.
You're getting the hang of it. No, it was tough for me in the beginning. Even just knowing what was Terra, I'm like, oh yeah, that's not the type that I've been familiar with for the past how many years of playing Pokemon. It's different. So I would just attack into a Terra type that just didn't make any sense. So I think I've got it now. But no, I'm glad. I'm kind of curious of your thoughts on some teams like that and some synergy. We got some old synergies that still work. We got some new ones. So we got our cores that are pretty similar, like when it comes to switching. So with this team, like right off the bat, like I see a lot of different ways to play. Like I see your prankster weather, you got your prankster terrain, so you got defense against both of those. You've got really bulky mons, and you've got Dragonite, you got Klefki, Rotom, Orthworm, and even Crocodile in some cases can be considered, like AV is probably one of the best items on it, and double Intimidate. So I kind of want to know what stands out to you the most when you look at a roster like this.
Yeah, I think like in draft leagues, of course, we always like to look at the whole Fire, Grass, Water cores and the Steel, Dragon, Fairy cores, which they have in this team, actually. Oh, yeah, there's the water. I was trying to find the water.
Just hiding in the back.
Yeah, the little Quaquavel or Quaquavel.
Yeah, it's Quaquavel. Like it's
Quaquavel. Yeah.
Quaquavel. Yeah, sure.
But of course you look for those things, but you also, of course, you need to look at things like speed control. Do they have any weather control, terrain as well? I mean, terrain is not such a big deal unless you're going with like a whole unburdened thing or like expanding full spam, that kind of stuff. But I think speed control is definitely one of the things that is a must-have, and you need a fairly decent speed control as well. I mean, the unfortunate thing I think with this team is that the Tailwind setter is Dragonite.
I was thinking the same thing.
Dragonite is a beast of its own. Like it's so offensive and so good and bulky as well. But as a Tailwind setter, you don't really want it as that, really.
Not really, because it hits so hard. You don't want to take that move slot that's just so tough to give up with such a move set like Dragonite has.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, one good thing though, like you said, with the Klefki being a prankster Pokemon, it does have that access to Thunder Wave, so you can get some speed control that way. But on the opposite side though, as Trick Room setters, he's got 3, I think there. Good ones. Can see. Yeah, and they're really good Trick Room setters. So yeah, in that aspect, it's actually really good. However, with that being said, his team is predominantly quite fast. So Trick Room might go against him more than anything. Yeah.
Yeah, the Granbull is kind of an interesting one. Like it's got a high enough attack stat to kind of go off. Unfortunately, the physical fairy just isn't really doing it for me.
Yeah.
I've used play miss in tournaments, and play missed I did. And it's just Gramble does have a decent move pool as well, and 120 does work. I think this is probably your Terra candidate. It gets some fun stuff like Stomping Tantrum, Temper Flare. So you can run the Terra Blast in those situations, or the offensive Terra and defensive Terra together.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Rapska, we were talking about this earlier before you got here, is I like Trick Room setters who can use its own Trick Room. And I think Rapska is probably right on the cusp of the acceptably meeting that role. 115 isn't super scary. Like, Psychic Bug is not exactly the strongest offensive option, but I think it's enough. No. This is enough to be a pain, and Revival Blessing. So, I think this is, like you said, this is probably more leaning on the fast mode. Like, you've got your kind of like okay Tailwind, you got your Prankster T-Wave, E-Web here, you've got Icy Wind here, Fake Out here, and Trick Room. I think that kind of checks off every form of speed control there is, next to what? It even has Pledge Swamp. Like, this literally is every piece of speed control.
Yeah. Yeah, the Pledge Swamp is really cool as well. You don't actually see it often, but when it pops off, it's so good.
Yeah.
Because I think it lasts for, I think it's 5 turns, or the 4 turns that it lasts for, like usual things.
I think it's 5, but realistically, you're only going to use 4 of them, just because it takes both of you to set it itself, and I think that's the first turn, and then there's 4 more, I think. It's like Trick Room. Like, you can't really use the 5th turn of Trick Room.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Unless it's after you, but then you're using both ones.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I think one thing I really like, though, like when you look at the stats, the BST is just over 500, and that's really impressive, you know. It means you've got like a good range of like balanced stats there. Yes, the HP is a little bit on the low sides up compared to the others, but like the defense and the special defense are nice numbers.
Yep.
And yeah, it's just a well balanced team for me, you know. And as you can see on the weaknesses, it's only got that fire there as a big weakness. But then you've got water type. You've got that water type there to accommodate that, and also Rotom Heat that can take those fire type moves.
Yeah, and the fact that this team is going to bring Dragonite, Rotom, Quaquaval every single week, these fire weaknesses really aren't that much of a problem, because you're going to bring 2 or 3 resists every single week, and I think you're fine there, right? And which is probably what I think you were getting at. Double Shed Tail though, I think this team could be a lot of fun to use.
Yeah, it's going to be a pain, I think, because there's going to be like a lot of things that this team can do. And actually, it's kind of like coming back to that speed control. It's going to be quite hard to predict what side of the speed control they're going to go with. Are they going to go fast, or are they going to go slow?
I'd plan for fast.
Option.
Like if I were facing this team, I'd be like, you know what, your slow mode is not nearly as good as your fast mode. I'll set slow. I'll set it on you, and you figure it out. But that's
definitely.
Yeah, it's a very diverse team.
And it does the job. As you were saying with the Shed Tail, though, like when you've got 2 Pokemon that can do Shed Tail, you've actually got to really kind of hit the Pokemon before they can do it. So you've got to make sure that you got to try to outspeed them, which isn't easy, especially against a Sceptile, which is like 120 base speed.
Yep.
So you've got to try and hit them before they do it, or double up into that slot, thinking that they're going to go for Shed Tail, you know?
Yep. And with Unburden, you could always do the weakness policy Unburden stuff as well. All you have to do is just do a Terra of your choice, you know, and then go from there. This team is got something going on. I think these matches are going to be a while. I think because they're so bulky, and you got screens, you got Rotom, you got pivoting, you got speed control. So and not to mention Crocodile, I think fits really well on this team as well, with the Earth Eater, the Deonite, and then you also have the Levitate. I like it a lot. And not to mention the telepathy. So this thing is going to Earthquake weekly.
Yeah. Earthquake's going to be really good, really good.
Yeah. So what would be your I'm not going to throw, I don't know if you watched the Premier Division video, but I kind of threw a bunch of random rating systems at Adrian. I was like, swipe left, swipe right, or like, would you introduce this? Would you have a second date with this team? But I'm just going to make it easy on you. I'm going to make it super easy on you. S, A, B, C, D. What do you got?
Yeah. Ooh, definitely A, but like kind of in between A and S, in my opinion.
Yeah, high A. I'm there with you.
I think I say that. I think I say that because it's the kind of team where each week you can do something new.
Yep.
And that's always an issue because, like, as an opponent against it, because you're like, they can actually do so much stuff that I'm not even sure what to prep against,
Yeah.
And having a team like that is just so beneficial.
Yeah, your opponent can't just zero in on an idea, right? So and you got the two cores, and you've got the fast and slow, and you got a lot of bulk. So these are going to be some fun matches to watch. I just hope he pilots it the way he's got kind of a vision for. So that's cool. I like it. First one out of the way. WPL podcast, whatever the hell you want to call it, debut. You feeling good?
Yeah, man.
How good are you feeling about ripping into this horrible team?
I feel good about ripping into this. I haven't actually saying that though. I haven't actually seen it from this point of view, so I haven't actually done like my weaknesses and my like BST stats or anything like that. So this is actually new to me.
Whoa, holy stats, Batman! You got 522. I don't think I've ever seen one that high.
I'm actually shocked about seeing that number. I didn't realize it was that high.
Well, slacking helps.
That's true. Yeah, that thing is a beast.
Yeah, slacking definitely helps. I guess I can kind of kick it off and ask you questions just so you don't reveal too much about your team. But obviously you have
I could do the obvious.
Yeah, there's the obvious ones like Polytoad, Polyrath, and then, which by the way, the same family, which is really nice. I really like the Raichu on this team. Like, not even so much just for the lightning rod. I like it for the fact that it's just very annoying to face, and the fact that it runs the lightning rod as well to protect your Polytoad. It's the fake out, it's the nuzzle, it's the E-web, it's the screens, it's the volt switch pivoting in and out, which we were talking about before you got here on the other rain team, which was what was it? It was Lost City Lurkers. Having pivoting moves on a rain team or a terrain team is just really nice. You don't have to just hard switch. You could just do you have slower pivoting? I don't think so. That would be really nice if you had like a really slow U-turn or flip turn or whatever it is. Then you can kind of.
No, doesn't actually look like. I think Polytoad randomly gets U-turn. I think.
Yeah, or flip turn or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but you got your redirection, which is great. You've got your King Gambit, which by the way, King Gambit Magmar. I don't know if you intended on this, but being able to redirect close combats to burn them with Flame Body is just beautiful. I really like that synergy.
That was my intention there, and it was. I was thinking throughout it because Magma was actually a little bit later in the picks, and I was thinking like, oh, I haven't got redirection. I really need redirection, for King Gambit, Swords Dance, that kind of stuff.
Yep, and Sucker Punch will just go off on this team. I think is really nice.
Yeah, exactly. And then I just saw Magmar, and I was like, well, holy moly, no one's picked it up. I need to get that.
I think it was 6 points, too. Or something?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Like that's really cheap for what it's going to do. Like, I faced Rob with this team, I think last season or the season before, and I was like, this thing is bothering me quite a bit.
Yeah.
So the cool thing about
so
slacking... Sorry, the cool thing about slacking, too, slacking Wheezing, rather than, say, the other Regigigas or whatever it is... obviously, that's not legal this season, but I remember Octo picked the Gigas Wheezing, and it's a lot easier to work with Truant than it is the Slow Start, because Slow Start, it changes your stats immediately when it's off the field. Slacking, you can switch it in and out every other turn if you really wanted to, because Truant is every other turn. So the first turn for slacking is always good, but the second turn, you can switch Wheezing out, still get your attack off. You can have your Magmar on the field or whatever it might be for the redirection, and you can mess around like that. So I do like this combo in this format because it's so strong. And the Galarian Wheezing having the Misty Surge as an option as well.
Yeah, that was actually the first intention with Wheezing, actually. It wasn't so much the gas. I wanted Levitate as well because it does help King Gambit. Because of how weak it is against those ground types and Magma. And then I was thinking, Misty Surge would be good actually, because then you can't burn King Gambit, and Poliwrath as well. But then I thought, actually, if I get the gas with it, I can just grab Slakin as a late kind of pick. And yeah, I mean, because the gas really it doesn't really help me in a lot of ways, but it also helps me because of the Slakin now. And Gudra, I mean, Gudra has some good abilities, but they're not massively important. I think maybe Sap Sipper would be a really good one here because of the two grass weaknesses I've got. But yeah, so I picked it up, and then, yeah, I just picked up Slakin as a late one because I thought, why not? It's like the cheap Regigigas, let's say, but I say cheap. The BST is just ridiculous.
You'd prefer this one in some cases over the Regigigas. So like this thing has only 65 SPDF, but 150 HP. That's yeah, this thing's gonna take special moves pretty well with that HP stat. So, but with this team though, I also noticed you grab the Prankster Weather as well, which is, I like that on weather teams. So you can pivot in and out. You can use the pivoting with the move. You can hard switch in your Politoed, and you can set the Rain Dance. So I think Meowstic is just beautiful across the board. It's expensive. I think it's 8 points. Or was it 7?
It was a bit 7. I think it was 7.
Which is probably where it should be. Like Fake Out Trick Room is such a good combo as well. So like with Gothitelle, like obviously the anti-switching is a little different, but the fact that turn 1 game 1, they have no idea what this Meowstic's gonna do. It gets everything. Like it gets Encore, it gets Fake Out, it gets Trick Room, it gets Screens, it gets Yawn, it gets, like it's, you don't really know what it's gonna do. I guess you just taunt it to be safe.
Yeah, you do actually. That's exactly what you have to do with Meowstic. Either fake it out or taunt it, because like you said, it's so versatile. It's got such a massive move pool. You're not actually quite sure which Meowstic might come. Yes, you can have a basic idea, but then it is quite tricky to work out. No pun intended there. Quite tricky to work out whether it's going to go with Trick Room or I think it gets access to Thunder Wave.
Yep.
I think.
Yes, it does. Thunder Mist, I like to call it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
so
I do
just
like
not
this
sure
team
what
a
you're going to
lot.
get with this Pokemon.
Like there's a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
there's no Tailwind. Well, the Tropius gets Tailwind.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the
so
Tropius does.
Yeah,
I think that was the. Oh no, actually, I think Tailwind and Wide Guard was the reason why I picked up Tropius. And it was a grass type as well, and I needed a grass type.
Yeah, and you don't necessarily have an ice weakness on this team, so Tropius can kind of have some fun. And if somebody wants to go, say, Sun against you or something like that, you got the Harvest stuff and the Solar Power. So weather changers beware. So I like what you did here. I see what you did. I don't see pure rain on this team. I see a couple of different modes. I see a few different ways of playing it. So I like what you did there. I'd probably give this probably mid-A, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Would you want to give yourself a rating, or how are you feeling about that?
I think A is like, I think A is fine. I think there are some things about it that could have been better. Like I think Cryogonal. Yes, it's really cool. It's fast, and it's got really good special attack and special D. But if you hit it with like a physical move, it's gonna drop to anything.
You're fine.
But I think maybe I could have picked up a better ice type, because I was actually trying to get a what was I trying to get? A ghost type. I was trying to get an ice ghost, but there was nothing there. So I just picked up Cryogonal, thinking, it gets icy wind, and it can hit like a truck, and it is quite fast, so why not?
Yeah, and some sheer cold stuff too, if they want to ignore it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
No, but I would say overall, nice job on this team. I'm curious to see it on the field, and but yeah, that gives us a few more teams to go. Rambunctious Regis. Let's talk about the player first. I know you weren't around last season, but Rambunctious Regis has done very well. Rambunctious Regis did very well in Ultra Ball in his first season, and earned promotion up to Master Ball last season, and did very well. Ran the Groudon team, ran basically pure Sun, had the Gardevoir, had a really nice core, and it slaughtered me. and I was like, oh my goodness, what am I gonna do? But
Yeah.
no, I didn't think there was any chance. It was just such a good team. So, and I think this team's also very good as well. You got your Rilla, Milotic, Arcanine is as good of a fire, water, grass core
Yeah.
as you can get, just to beat that core to death. And the Clefable is just a really, really nice piece to add to any team. But I don't think anyone can look at this team without just seeing right off the bat the duo of Rilla Sneasler. What are your
Yeah.
takes on how the draft started off with those two?
Yeah, I mean, when I saw that, it was like, oh, those are two really big, hard-hitting physical attackers. And then, of course, one is helping the other with its ability. Um, Sneasler is just, it's so powerful. Like 130 base attack is just something else. And it's fast. It's actually so fast that it probably doesn't even need Unburden, but it has it anyway.
Yeah,
So
just
I
for
think it
fun.
is actually the fastest Unburden now. It used to be Halucha, but I think it's now this.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, like Reggie Alecki who like this thing. It
Yeah,
doesn't really
yeah,
matter
exactly.
at that point.
Yeah, it actually, yeah, outspeeds Regieleki, which is crazy. Um, but yeah, so when I saw those two, it was like, oh, I mean, I think everyone could admit that Rillaboom on its own is just such a presence, you know.
It's a
It can
restricted
do,
mon,
I think,
pretty much.
since it came out in Generation 8, it has just shown that it is such a formidable Pokemon. It is, and I don't think there's, I mean, I don't know, maybe it's quite a statement in saying that I don't think there's any other grass type that can really match its level. Um,
Yeah,
I'm
I
trying to
guess
think of
Bulu is
grass
probably the
type
biggest
now.
comparison, but
That's true. Yeah.
but Bulu didn't have Grassy Glide and doesn't have Grassy Glide. But I remember
Yeah.
when watching some older videos when Bulu came out, it was like it was just as impactful when it came out. Everybody loved it,
Yeah.
and now
Yeah.
it's like just it wasn't good enough. Let's just make a much better version of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, Rillaboom's just a
Yeah.
force to be
That's
reckoned
what.
with
Yeah.
in every format it's been
It
in
is.
since its release. So nice job, Game Freak. Thank you.
Yeah, I know. It is actually, and it's weird because yes, it's that like it is such a powerful grass type, but at the same time, if you have a really hard counter against it, Rillaboom can't do anything against you. It's like if you have like a really strong fire type, it's literally like, I've got to pivot out because I can't deal with you. You know,
Mm-hmm.
a fire type is just a big no-no for me. So see you later.
Enter Arcanine Hisui, right?
Yeah, I mean, he picked up a great fire type, right? It's the fire type that intimidates as well. So, Rillaboom doesn't have to worry about a fire type that's intimidating it anymore because it's on the same team.
Mm-hmm. If I do have to say one thing though, the fact that the Arcanine, Sneasler, and Rillaboom are all physical attackers,
Yeah.
so it is a little susceptible to intimidate, but that also makes the Milotic kind of have a lot more fun, doesn't it?
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, when you look at that team, you can see, well, actually, if you look on the basic stats, you can see that the attack is much higher than the special attack.
And Chansey just brings
And
down that average pretty
yeah,
hard.
I mean, Chansey whacks up that HP, but it brings down
Did I say Blissey?
everything else. Oh no, Blissey even, yeah.
No, I thought I
Blissey.
accidentally said Blissey, but I thought I don't know. Old
Oh,
man
yeah.
memory. But look at the average.
Did you say Chansey?
I don't
No.
know, maybe.
But yeah,
Chansey off, and it goes up an average of what? Yeah, it
Yeah.
goes up like what 7 right
It's-
off the bat.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so this team is just
And like,
really really nice.
yeah,
And
I
then
mean,
the Mandibuzz just as well just kind of adds that extra like girth to this team and bulk.
yeah,
And it's got your slow bulky Tailwind as opposed to like your Talonflame and Prankster stuff. Like this thing,
yeah,
it's getting Trick Room up if it wants to.
yeah, most definitely. I think like, I think the only like downside I see is that there's not a really hard hitting special attacker. I
Yeah.
mean, Milotic and Rotom are good special attackers, but they're not like a massive hard hitting special attacker, you know. I mean, like if we want to make a comparison, for example, like Hippowdon there, which isn't like the most physical Pokemon, its physical attack hits harder than Milotic's special attack does.
Yeah.
So it's like that comparison, and I think that absence of a hard hitting special attacker might actually be the kind of Achilles heel of this team.
Yeah. Like I can see this team leading on like a Specs Rotom. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like when you have a team that doesn't exactly have the stats in the offensive category on the special side, I think you kind of need Life Orb Clefable with the Magic Guard and possibly like Specs Rotom. I think those are very good sets, but the fact that you have to rely on those to even get special offense aside from your opponent setting your competitive off, I do think that could be problematic, but you know what? This team just says, if you want to intimidate me, go for it. Like, first of all, my Arcanine's going to have Clear Amulet on it, and my Sneasler, okay, cool. I'm still going to hit you through it, and Rillaboom's going to pitch, pivot out. Or you just go straight up Sneasler Milotic and then take your pick, right? If you want to intimidate turn one, go for it. I'm just going to hard switch into Rillaboom and, have some fun. So I do think this team wants to pivot in and out. Like, Sneasler doesn't really want to do that, neither does Milotic. Once it gets the boost, it wants to stay. Clefable's a nice piece on this team as well. I think Clefable is kind of like a sneaky, sitting in the back, kind of people don't realize how good it is.
Yeah, it is a little sneaky one. I mean, of course, everyone who plays VGC quite competitively, we all know that Friend Guard Clefairy is like better in a kind of double setting, but Clefable has its own tricks. Magic Guard is actually a good ability. Despite losing that Friend Guard, Magic Guard is still really good. And yeah, I mean, look at the special attack is actually pretty decent on it as well. It can hit almost as hard as Milotic, so that's something that has to be kind of considered. It's not just that bulky Pokemon that sits there and helps out its team. No, it can actually hit you pretty hard as well.
Yeah, it's like we were saying about your Meowstic, right? Like you're kind of turn one, game one, you're like, okay, what does this thing do? Same thing with Clefable.
Yeah.
Like this thing can run 100 sets. And I don't think there's any mistake that he made with Hippowdon being on a team with Magic Guard, the Rock type Arcanine, Overcoat, Mandibuzz. I don't think there's any mistake there. I think it was done completely intentional. So this team has a very sneaky sand mode as well. Sashes beware, right? So.
Oh yeah. So the Hippowdon actually, when it first came out in Gen
4? 5.
I want to say 5. Yeah, I think I might be wrong
3?
on that.
I don't even know.
Oh my god, I can't remember how early that was now.
People are yelling at the screen because you said that.
It might be 4. Yeah. But I remember when it first came out, I loved it because it was another Sandstream Pokemon, and it was bulky as well. Like the HP and defense are just massive, and if you put a AV on it, if you want to go that route, you can put like an AV on it and actually be like a hitting Hippowdon. And yeah, like its attack stat is actually decent, so it can hit you quite hard as well.
Well, stab Earthquake too. I don't think there's too much Earthquake happening with Rillaboom coming every single week, but I do think that does. I'm not saying anti-synergistic, but if you had to be picky, I guess I'd probably say its best move is kind of taken away from it. But Hippowdon does other things, like you said. Like it can slack off, it can support its partners with Yawn and setting the weather, and just kind of stalling its way through weeks, just doing your chip damage with the sand. So I like this. But when it comes to how this team will perform on the field, I guess let's just say, where would you kind of put this in like a final rating of where you would put this team?
I'm not actually sure. I think.
Oh, I'm sure.
I mean, I think. I mean, I like. I forgot to come back to Mandibuzz. Mandibuzz is so bulky for a flying type, and if you hit it with a rock type move, thinking, oh yeah, special effective. Yes, it's going to do damage, but not as much as what you actually think. Like the amount of times I've hit that with like a rock type move, and I'm like, whoa, that did a lot less than what I hoped for.
Yeah.
And then it's a tailwind setter, which is great. It is the only tailwind setter, but it is a pretty decent one. And then Slowpoke being the only TR setter.
That'd be my only gripe with this team.
Yeah.
Like, if they set Trick Room on you, you got a bunch of mid-speed kind of mons.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how it's going to handle it, but there are a couple of hard Trick Room teams that this team might have a hard time with. But we do have E-Speed Arcanine, and we do have Grassy Glide Rillaboom, and I think we might be okay. And Hippowdon's not exactly something you can ignore in Trick Room. So
no, No, and then I mean, Bastiodon is great in Trick Room as well. Like,
Is it?
Bastiodon.
Is it though?
I mean, actually, I say it is, but then like, it's such a strange Pokemon, isn't it? Because it's like, it is bulky to like such a crazy extent, but it can't hit for shit. And it's like,
Well, this thing's competing
well,
with
you
an
got to kind of
offensive.
be that.
Like Onyx is right
Yeah,
there with it. Like,
yeah,
like Oddish, I
exactly.
think
It's
has
like,
this
well,
thing in the attack column.
yeah,
Let's see.
you kind of need it to be that supporting Pokemon, you know.
Ooh, yeah, Oddish.
Oddish,
No,
where is
Oddish.
it?
It's close though.
um, mm,
So what do you got on
I
this
think I would
final
go like
analysis?
I think I'll go like a B plus.
I think I'm there with you.
Like I think it's not quite in that A category because just some things I've highlighted, like that lack of a really hard hitting special attacker, the kind of speed control with the Tailwind and Trick Room. Yeah, there's only one of each. Um, yeah, I mean it's bulky. It's a bulky team, and it's
Yeah.
going to be actually really hard to kill most of these Pokemon. But I just don't think they're going to have enough power. I think there's going to be too much reliance on Rillaboom and Sneasler and Arcanine.
Well, draft, like for the most part, is pretty hyper offensive. I would say, like a lot of
Yeah,
people
that's
just
true.
go for those fast, strong modes that just do insta damage. This team doesn't. It kind of has that with the Rilla Sneasler, but we mentioned already a couple ways to kind of deal with that. But
Yeah.
I do think that this, if you can't get ahead of this team, I think this team's just going to grind you right out. And I can see this team
Yeah,
doing like
definitely.
being like a 5-win team, maybe 6, right? So, and the player
Yeah.
himself, I think is good at playing the game altogether. So I'd
Yeah,
probably put this as a
exactly.
successful team.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest, like the amount of times I've done these kind of analysis before, and the amount of times I've said this team's, I think they're going to struggle,
They
I
win it
can't really
all.
see it. And then they win like every single week consecutively, and I'm like, okay, I was way off. Like the player knew more than what I knew, maybe they're just that good of a player that they know the team so well, inside and out, and they know exactly how to use it.
Well, that's why it's fun too, right? Like that's why these videos are fun. I just want to remind everybody,
Yeah.
like I always call it being butthurt and stuff like that. We are basically we're giving analysis of things that can give food for thought. It'd be like, you know what, my team is a little susceptible to that. I didn't see that. Maybe I might want to make a change, or I've already got an answer for that. No worries. Like those are very
Yeah.
accepting
Yeah.
ways of kind of dealing with the criticism, but it's not even so much criticism. That this is just fun. We're having a good time
Yeah.
just talking about teams, like kind of seeing what we see. Like maybe we can get more in depth in the future, whatever it is, being like, hey, if I were prepping against this team, this is what I would do. Things like that. But we don't want to play your
Yeah.
games for
Yeah.
you. We don't want to play your opponent's games for you. So we want to see how things play out naturally. So take it for what it is. Prove us wrong. I've been saying it for how many seasons when we do these videos. Prove
Oh
us
yeah.
wrong.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
But going on to the next team, because I think this is going to be pretty long. This might even be longer than the Premier Division one. But I really like the offensive options on this team right off the bat.
Yeah.
Ursa Sinistra
Wow, it's
is
so
really
like
really nice.
yeah. This team just like screams out like offense, you've got so many Pokemon here that can hit hard. Uh
Don't need no
I
help.
mean, yeah, I mean you started off with the yeah. I mean you started off with the Blood Moon and the Sinistcha. We all know now since Scarlet and Violet came out how formidable that duo is and how hard it is to actually deal with, if you haven't got the right tools.
Well, I think the last team
Um,
we were talking about how it needs a special attacker. Why don't you just take one of these?
yeah, yeah,
Like there
wow,
is an
like
overabundance of them. Like even Grimmsnarl,
yeah,
95. Like if Grimmsnarl was on this
yeah,
other team, it would be what? The third highest special attacker, tied with Arcanine. And that's a Grimmsnarl.
yeah, exactly, yeah.
So
I mean,
so
it's
this
just
team's got
so
some fun stuff.
offensive. Like this team is gonna hit you quite hard and quite fast as well. Yeah, and you've got I think with this team you've got to really maybe I don't want to give too much away, but like
Do it.
if you want to try and beat it, you need to get rid of that one Pokemon that sets up the rest of them. And Sinistcha is that one, Grimmsnarl is the other one, Bronzor is one, Dewgong is actually another one. Like, and I think that's how you have to do it. And if you don't have the tools to take them out in the first round, the first turn, should I say, I think you're going to struggle from then on, because if Sinistcha gets TR up, if Grimmsnarl manages to get its screens up or gets any Thunder Wave shenanigans going, you're in trouble. You're in big trouble.
Well, look at all the ways this team can play. Just looking at like the first 6 or 7 or 8 Pokemon, you're just like, I see so many lead combinations. You got Sinistcha Arcanine, you've got your Ursa Sinistcha. You can just Rage Powder and then protect it. You've got your Intimidate with Empoleon, so not like you really want to intimidate this team too much. It's got Defiant and Competitive on the same team, but you have Fast Tailwind and Noivern. Just throw a cloak on that thing and you're not faking it out. You've got Fake Out and Tinkaton and Grimmsnarl. You have your own Intimidate. You have your Choice Band. I could go on all day about this team.
I know.
This is the most versatile team I've seen.
Yeah. It's so well put together. I mean, yes, Noivern is the only Tailwind setter, but it's so fast that it will probably get it up regardless. And with the likes of Grimmsnarl and Tinkaton and Dewgong that can fake out to make sure it goes up.
Well, double pickpocket is something. That's hard to draft 2 of those, let alone 1.
Yeah, and I was actually going to say this about Grimmsnarl. Grimmsnarl has always been my favorite Gen 8 Pokemon. I absolutely love it.
There's a lot of good
on the
ones.
Premises of not just because of the whole prankster shenanigans that it does, but 2, that it is a dark type, so you can't taunt it because of you want to taunt it because it's a Grimmsnarl with another prankster, should I say anyway. So you can't stop it from doing what it needs to do. And also, I have actually played with it as a Frisk Pokemon, and I absolutely love it as a Frisk Pokemon because it's got a really high attack stat, so it hits like a truck as well.
Well, you've already got the Noivern for Frisk, so I do think Frisk, you don't have to run the Frisk on the Grimmsnarl, but I do agree with you being very underrated, Frisk. Yeah. It's nice that he doesn't have to run it on his Grimmsnarl, so it can stick to what it does best. And Noivern can just kind of stick to what it does best. We were talking about, and this is my third reference to it, the Meowstic, turn 1, game 1. If you can find out the items, usually an item reveals the set.
Yeah, it does.
You see a citrus berry, you're just like, okay, well, this thing wants to set up in some way. It's not going to be 4 attacking moves with a citrus berry. It's probably going to be like Dragon Dance or Calm Mind or Trick Room, things like that. So it kind of if you see that on a Meowstic, you're like, okay, well, first of all, next game I can taunt it. It doesn't have Cloak, I can fake it out. Unless if it doesn't have Cloak, you can be like, okay, it's probably Terra Ghost. So there's just from a single Frisk before the first turn's even played, you get so much information. So I think Noivern's a very underrated draft league Pokemon. And I think he's going to do very well with it. I see so many tools. It's just how does he use those tools for success the best. So I can see Ant doing very well with this team. Just don't switch too much. I think last season we saw a few Ultra Ballers. Balance is balance, but if you balance too much, it's not balanced. I keep saying this.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Well, I keep saying it. It's like, how do you win games? You do more damage to your opponent than they do to you. So if you're switching too much, you're not doing any damage. So this team might have that problem when it comes to you want to switch because you got such great switch-ins, but just do damage. You've got the offense.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I was talking about at the start. If you don't start dealing damage straight away, you're kind of asking you're going to be on the back foot, I think, straight away, because this team's going to get set up. It's going to start doing exactly what it wants to do. Whereas if you're hitting hard straight away, getting that damage dealt quickly, it makes it harder for this team to then deal with you. And I love the synergy that's going on here. You've got 3 Trick Room setters. But with Espeon, of course, you're protecting Primate Tinkaton from getting burned with that magic bounce. which is amazing as well.
Yeah, it's kind of
So
sneaky.
there's that element to it. And Tinkerton, I think Tinkerton has had kind of like a hard time in some way. It's like it's tried to get its foot in competitive VGC, but
What do you mean
in
tried?
draft leagues,
What do you mean
been
tried?
doing
I brought
better.
it to nationals last year.
Nice. I
Literally.
love to see it. And it kind of it has some surprises actually, Tinkerton. It gets like
Mold
these
breaker.
little surprise moves, you know, like Thunder Wave, and you're like, whoa, I did not know it gets that, you know.
Encore.
Y- Yeah, it is a little surprise Pokemon, and I do like that.
Yeah, Gigabonk
I
Hammer is
mean,
nice too, obviously. But
yeah,
that
yeah,
yeah, its
Ooh,
attack is only
powerful
what
move.
84, sorry 75. But a big bonk is a big bonk.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I forgot what the attack damage is on that move.
160, I think it is.
Yeah, something ridiculous. It's just a disgusting move. Um, I mean, even when you're like a fire type, it still does sometimes like 20%, and for a fire type that resists that move, it's just ridiculous. Um, and then of course, you know, like the Blood Moon, we could talk hours on how good this Pokemon is and how
I'd rather not.
scary it truly is.
I'd rather not. This thing has.
Oh, it's just such a scary Pokemon.
He's got both of them. He's got the Gigaton Hammer. You're like, oh well, thank God they only gave it 75 attack, and Ursaluna just goes "Roar," and comes into the scene.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
don't worry. I've
so
got Blood Moon, you know, and it's a 135 base special attack.
yeah, it's this thing. Yeah, I don't even want to talk about Blood Moon or Ursaluna. Just and then you got your stab, throat spray, your
Scary.
hyper voices, and whatever guy. Just
Yeah, it's a scary Pokemon. It's kind of this team is kind of like a you need spread damage in order to deal with it.
yeah, fair. Or I think the safety goggles could be nice too, but safety goggles kind of
Yeah,
takes away from what your item can really do. It's not even a sleep powder team, right, or a spore team, so you're basically just to get around the
no, not
redirection.
at
So
all.
I think you're right when it comes to instead of like taking the item slot, just go for spread damage like snarls, careful,
Yeah,
and just heat waves. But
yeah,
even so, how do you hit this team collectively? I don't think there's two things on the
I
field that are going
know.
to share a weakness.
I know. It's exactly like that. I mean, you could say like, okay, I can go for some like earthquakes to get some massive damage on Arcanine and Empoleon, Tinkerton, but then you've got a flying type there that can completely negate that, and Bronzor that has levitate as well. So yeah, it's a really difficult team to go up against.
Yeah, and a little sneaky thing, Empoleon gets Wave Crash. Like, let's not ignore the
It
fact that
does.
Empoleon does get a very strong physical water move. So you could run this thing physical 1 week,
Yeah,
and just run a torrent set instead of competitive. But
yeah,
Wave
yeah,
Crash, actually, I think I did the calcs once. Wave Crash does more on Empoleon with its weaker attack stat than it does with its stab water special moves, like the Water Pledge. Um, so the base power of an attack has such an effect on how much damage you're
yeah,
doing, more so than the actual base stat itself of the special attack, or the
mm,
offensive stat. So yeah, if you guys ever want to just kind of mess around with it, just go in the calculator and just start putting moves in there, start putting base stats in there,
yeah,
just to kind of see what the correlation between the stats and the base power of the move is. The base power has a major effect. So like your
yeah,
flare blitzes, your wave crashes, your gigaton hammer, for example, your blood moon.
yeah,
But let's just rate this team just so we can actually, because we love this team, and I think we can talk for hours about this team specifically.
yeah.
So
We could.
so nice job overall,
Yeah,
Ant, by doing this.
yeah.
Uh,
Very nice.
what are you thinking for? Do you want to face this team week 1 or not? I don't know if you do, but
Oh no, no, definitely not. And thank God I'm not either.
Guardians Grace, welcome to the league. This is your first test.
Yeah, no. For me, I think this is S for me.
I'm right there.
I think it's like, I think A is just not like,
It's an insult.
if I mean, if it is A, it's like such a high A that it just might as well be S. And that's what I think. I think it is just such a good, well-rounded team that's very dangerous. That's got a lot of tools at its disposal.
Well, I've got a hard time ranking that one or this one over each other. So I'm not really sure. So I'm gonna put them tied for first. These are my two favorites, depending on how the player kind of
Definitely.
takes care of it. But a great segue into the next team. The team that this team will be facing week 1, Ken Garden's race. Does he have the tools to take care of it?
Oh wow. Okay. Actually, yes.
Whimsicott Typhlosion. That's, you want to talk about insta offense?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Actually, yeah, they do actually have, things. They do have things there that they could actually use in order to stop that team completely. Really.
1, 2, 3, right off the bat, and then the Meowscarada.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be Ant's toughest match, week 1. Poor guy.
Yeah. This is a good team. This is actually a really tough team for them. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like it.
I mean, you could talk about all the weaknesses there, but every Pokemon has a weakness, and of course, with this Terra forming, the weaknesses don't really have that much of an impact that much anymore, because you can just change your type to whatever you're weak against now. But yeah, I mean, good base stats there. Pretty all well-rounded. Again, kind of like that team for special attackers predominantly.
Yeah, this team's got offense.
Yeah.
The average attack stat is definitely higher than it should be. Like, you're not using a physical Typhlosion. You're not using your Zweilous. Okay, maybe. For a Giraffe, having a 90 attack stat is almost like a wasted stat. So I do think this is an inflated average. So this team might be kind of struggling on the physical side, but I think who can really handle the Whimsicott Typhlosion strat as a lead in draft?
I know. I mean, Whimsicott, not just in VGC but in draft leagues as well, it's always been a formidable Pokemon and just a pain to deal with. Yes, you do know roughly what you're going to get with it. You can have a pretty good guess on what it's going to do, but it still has like those little kind of gems at its disposal where it can throw you off completely and do something that you never thought it was going to do. And with Typhlosion, like you said, being there, that fire type that can protect Whimsicott, Volk, you can always switch that in the back to protect Whimsicott as well. I mean, those two protect a lot of the Pokemon, actually. I can imagine this team doing a lot of switching, to protect the Meowscarada, the Whimsicott, the Spidops as well.
See, this is the first time I probably disagree with you. I think if you switch with this team, you're going to lose. I think it's a little frail for me to be switching in and out.
Yeah.
I think you're a crit away from losing your game.
True. Yep.
Yeah. But it has so much offense right off the bat. We were talking about the Whimsicott Typhlosion. Meowscarada is a great lead almost every single week, every single game. For a Giraffe, same thing. So you don't really know what's coming out as a lead. I was saying this about in the Premier Division review as well, was this Hisuian Samurott on 6 team, the Chillin' Chespins, was very well protected. I think it was because of the Intimidate, because you had anti-Intimidate stuff on the team, such as Defiant, and you had Inner Focus, things like that. So this was the only thing you really want to Intimidate, so the Sharpness ability. But this team, this Samurott is not very well protected. Like you've got, look at all the fighting weaknesses.
Yeah,
like right off the bat.
It's actually quite funny because it's one of the ones that doesn't have red, but it actually has more weaknesses than I think any of the others, maybe, or maybe Bug has more or the same. But the great thing about having a Bug weakness is that not many coaches choose Bug Pokemon because it's the quote unquote the weaker typing, one of the weakest ones. So not many people pick up Bug
would hurt
Pokemon.
This. You don't see U-turn go into too many teams very well, but U-turn would really hurt this team. I think Volcarona is going to be a big part. I think it's interesting that it was the last pick of his draft when it was the first round of Riley's draft. So it's funny how people build their teams in pure points, being the first time we've done it in our league. We've always done pure tiers. But it's really interesting to see how the teams kind of came together, or didn't, for that matter. But the fact that this team, it's very top heavy. Like, look at these 6. If that's your 6 every week, I think you're fine.
Yeah.
You know?
I agree. I think the one thing that it would have been good to see is like having a Pokemon that can negate certain moves. Like, I don't know, like a Pokemon getting Flash Fire to protect from fire type moves, or Storm Drain to protect from water types. You've got Sap Tipper on Farigiraf, but when you look at the weaknesses, you don't need that. Like, you've only got 2 Pokemon that are actually weak against grass. But I think like something like that would have been good to have.
And one's Krokorok,
just to protect. Yeah. Just to protect yourself against that kind of weakness that you have. And also the lack of a steel type is kind of like is a bit painful, because a steel type can help against those fairy types, which you've got big weakness to as well.
Well, all of them. You got one steel type takes care of ice, poison, flying, bug, rock, fairy.
Yeah, exactly. So that one type in could have actually massively helped out against those weaknesses, just to balance it out a bit.
It's hard to grab a steel type a little lower. This is definitely a commitment to these things higher up. It's going to be really hard to make that swap based on what's available. The fact that A, there's not much left, and B, you're going to have to give up a significant piece to make that move. So I think this is the team. Like, sometimes I say, hey, this is the, make some transactions, and you can kind of figure it out as you go. But unfortunately, I think this is it. Maybe the Volcarona can be swapped, because you do have the Typhlosion on there. You already have your Tailwind setter. You've already got your setup mons, things like that. I do think that might be, if you had to pick, because of the impact it would have at 9 points to make the swap. I do think that's where I would probably make that. I think a Corviknight would do miracles for this team, which is available.
Corviknight, right.
It is available, or even a Scizor. Keep the bug typing, whatever it might be, and Scizor would do numbers for this. But like I said, there's not a lot of steel types sitting there. Like maybe Duraludon. You can grab. This Wireless I don't think is covering your Dragon type. I don't think it's coming most weeks, but a Duraludon might. Magnezone could work, but well, actually, Magnezone might work the best, because if you think about it, most teams have issues with ground weaknesses, but this team does not. So maybe Magnezone works. It doesn't have an electric type.
No, it doesn't. No.
So I do think I would consider swapping out the Volcarona, because I do think Typhlosion and Whimsicott are such a good duo. It's kind of hard to not go with those two, and then you have your fire type over here that it kind of does what Typhlosion's going to do on this team. So I do think Volcarona could probably swap out for another piece.
Yeah, I agree. I think like a team like this, like you said, the top 6 are predominantly what you're going to see, right? And I think that can like work against you a lot of the time, because your opponent every week is going to say it's going to be those 6 because they're so strong. So it's kind of like you can predict already what's going to come, and then you can like prep your work around it. So it can go against you at times. Of course, like you can throw opponents off by bringing, I don't know, Ambipom one week, or Spidops another week, But yeah, predominantly you are going to bring those 6, and kind of like contrasting to the last team where you can literally bring any of those 11 Pokemon, and it's still a scary team. Whereas this is scary in its own right, but you can prep easier against it,
Scary? Not scary.
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly.
I think I'm with you there. I think people can kind of zone in on what you're trying to do on paper for the most part, and this team can play. The game still has to be played on paper, played in the actual game. But I do think that this team doesn't really have much to prep against when it comes to a from the drawing board, opposition, sitting down, trying to build a team to beat you. You know what you're going to get for the most part, which might be this team's downfall, which I think why this slot right here, if you swapped, I'm not saying Volcarona's bad. I'm just saying that if in draft, having an extra tool would be very nice to have, just to give him something to think about. Maybe a Trick Room Sweeper. You know, you got a great Trick Room setter right here. You grab like something on like the 30 to 40 base speed side that can hit kind of hard, maybe on the physical side because your team might need it a little bit. I think that would do wonders.
Yeah, I agree.
You know,
I mean,
anything?
like you said, if this team has like one of the best Trick Room setters in the game.
Yep.
Like for Rigorath, I mean, it's been so consistent since it's come out, and there's a reason for that. Is because it can get Trick Room up pretty much like indefinitely. You know, I mean, you need like a wicked blow from Urshifu in order to destroy it, and even then, you can just terror into a fairy if you want.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's why it's just so good. But then like I don't know, I'm kind of like hoping that the coach like proves me, like you said, like proves me wrong, and just like I don't know, in the first week brings Spidops and Krokorok and does something so crazy that I just never thought of it. You know.
Yeah, I just want to double check something really quick. I just want to make sure this is the player that did say it. Let me see. Yeah, so this player actually, I was hesitant where to put this player when I scouted them and brought them in. This player actually spent some time in 2023 Worlds. So if we're talking about the player themselves, if anyone's gonna do it, it's this one. So, and I think they have 2 draft seasons under their belt. Did really well in one of them and did really poor in the other. And that could be a format thing, or it could be just the draft didn't go your way. So if anyone can do it, I would give Sephiroth is the name of the greatest villain of all time, and this player. So I would say, you know, I wouldn't count this player out, but maybe when it comes to draft experience, I would. I've got lots of it, and so do you. So I would say swapping out that Volcarona for maybe a Trick Room Sweeper on the physical side, if you can grab one.
Yep, definitely.
I think would be incredible. But I'd probably give this team probably a C- for now, just because I think it's got the crazy offense mode, but the Farigiraf kind of is there, but is really expensive for what it's doing for the team right now. The Gardevoir I think is set up nicely because you really want to fake it out. And Farigiraf is there. It's unlikely they're on the field together. But I do think Gardevoir is an incredible Pokemon to have on your team. And there's a lot of nice pieces, but there's a couple of throwaways down here that, you know, I don't think people are really prepared for.
There's just a few Pokemon here and there where I think you could just do those trades. Get something better. I think actually you said Corviknight. I think Corviknight would actually be an absolute massive shout because it is a steel type, but it actually is not weak against fighting types. So it like helps out against that. Yeah, like as you can see, like the weaknesses then completely change.
Yeah,
the
we were never
types,
really
weakness does creep up.
Yeah, we weren't going to cover all of those anyway, but
no, exactly. But it just helps out.
It does. Now this team I can see pivoting in and out. Like I think Corviknight switches in on a lot of these things. So I do think that would be nice. And then you have a nice Iron Defense body press option as well. So yeah, that'd probably be exactly. Have a look. And if you just want to run with it, I think this team is going to do just fine. So C- doesn't mean C losing. It just means C- as in paper. Paper means very little.
No, exactly.
Just ask Jenny.
Yeah, exactly.
Paper means nothing. So but moving on to the last team, your Bud. I think this is the most interesting team to analyze.
This is kind of like a typical Chris team, but not at the same time, actually, come to think of it. There's some mons there that I know he favors, and I've seen him use in drafts not every season, but quite consistently, and he knows exactly how they work. He knows exactly how that team, that core kind of works, and the synergy, and it's really scary. I like every time I play Chris, I always get that feeling where I'm not sure what he's gonna do, And I hate that feeling when I go up against another opponent because, like, I find myself quite transparent a lot of the time. Like, you kind of know what I'm gonna do, but it's like whether or not you can stop what I'm gonna do.
Yep.
Whereas with Chris, I just get that feeling where I just don't know what he's gonna do with it, and it puts you on the back foot straight away.
Yeah, I think you're right. This team does have like some face value strats. I think the one thing that is like, obviously you have the solar powered Charizard, you've got the Venusaur, you've got your Metagross that just hits hard, you got your Como, we know what it does. Mousehold did really well in Baltimore. The one wild card on this team that I see that really determines how this team plays, which might be a little bit too much if you ask me, is Sableye. Sableye really determines how this team is going to play every week. So if you can, which is a tall order to stop Sableye, you can't taunt it with Prankster, you can't really go for it before it does what it wants to do. It's just a pain the longer it stays on the field. But a lot of these things are enabled by Sableye. And that is a little concerning to me when it comes to how the team's going to play. Like Charizard, Venusaur are fantastic with, say, Drought. But if you have to use that Sunny Day move slot there, I've seen it in the past. I haven't seen it be super successful. As a secondary option, I don't mind it. But as a primary and only option, it might struggle. What are your thoughts on that?
No, that is exactly it. And I think if I remember talking to Chris, he was really bummed because he missed out on a Drought setter. And I think he didn't have enough points to grab Ninetales either. So he was quite bummed about not getting the weather Pokemon. And just had to settle for a Pokemon that can get the weather up Prankster way.
Adjusted, yeah.
Sableye, I mean, Sableye is it's one of those Prankster Pokemon that can be such a nuisance to deal with, but it isn't the kind of Prankster Pokemon that how to put it. It's kind of like it's not as annoying as Grimmsnarl, or it's not as versatile maybe as Meowstic or Whimsicott, but it has its own. Sableye's a weird one. It has its own little place because it has that Prankster Will-O-Wisp to begin with, which is just really like disgusting. I absolutely hate it for that, but also love it for that because it's so niche. And then Quash as well. Murkrow has that as well. Quash is a really good ability, move, should I say. And yeah, I think Chris will struggle to get the sun up. And especially when you can just switch your own weather Pokemon if you have it, just to stop it. Or just to, if you've got a slower Prankster Pokemon, you can just, which is hard with Sableye, but you can just change the weather back to how you want it to be. And I think as well, like I always get mixed up. I always forget that Sableye doesn't have Trick Room. I think it should in its right sense, really, because just how it is.
Can you imagine?
Yeah, that would be horrible, actually, come to think of it. I mean, Comfey's the only TR setter, and I think that's going to be hard as well if you want to get Trick Room up. But to be honest, looking at this team, you don't really want Trick Room up because you're quite fast.
Yeah, like maybe the Metagross or something like that, but I don't think it really needs any room to play in. I think Metagross just plays.
No.
It owns the room when it walks into it, or floats there, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah,
but,
I mean, yeah, he's got those two pseudo legendaries as well, Metagross and Komodo. Like those two are just so powerful. Like the BST, they're higher than any of the others, and they are quite formidable foes to deal with. Both physical attackers as well that love to set up, and with that mouse hold there to redirect your attacks, you can get set up.
Well, Metagross and Komodo being the what's it called, the pseudos from different games, they also play so differently. You know, like you've got your Clangorous Soul and Clanging Scales on the Como. You've got your Iron Defense Body Press, and you've just got stats for days. It's probably your Terrahog, but Metagross is just like, I do damage. Like it's the opposite of what Avery called Oran Grew. It doesn't do any damage. No, this thing is damage. I'm not a huge fan of its stabs, but all it needs is bullet punch. So again, it doesn't really care what room it's in. But the fact that it has access to Psychic Fangs now is just so nice. And it gets that new move. What's it called? That new steel move that does. What's it called?
Oh yeah, the
Not heavy slam.
I
What's
know
it
which one you
called?
mean.
Comment down below what it is because we're stupid.
Is it the speed one you're talking about? Like the slower you are?
No, it's the higher HP you have. It's a new move this gen.
Oh,
Metal
yeah,
something.
sorry. Yeah, it all comes at me.
Yeah, who cares? Whatever.
Probably in about 6 hours.
Yeah, you can comment on our own video down below, Aaron.
Yeah. And I think if I remember, I think didn't Metagross used to get TR, or am I crazy?
I don't think so, but I could be wrong.
I honestly can't remember. Okay, comment that as well in the comments. Did Metagross used to get Trick Room when it first came out? Because I don't know why in my head I thought it did, but because of the psychic typing, but maybe not.
Well, I guarantee you Riley's already typing, so.
I mean, yeah, this team is. I mean, it's scary when you actually look at it. Like Charizard and Venusaur are such special attack powerhouses. You've got to deal with them quite quickly. I mean, Venusaur is not only a powerhouse, but it's also disruptive with that sleep powder.
Yep.
So you've got to think, oh crap, it's going to try and put me to sleep. I'll fake it out. Oh, hold on, Covert Cloak being a new item, it can still put me to sleep. So there's that whole thing to think about.
I'm still trying to see how the sun gets set. Like yes, the move is there. I just don't. I'm trying to picture a scenario where Sableye on the field with something else and the sun is set, other than beside Charizard.
Mm-hmm.
Like Charizard's Scarf.
I think
Prankster, Sunny Day. Okay, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
But I don't know how he sets the sun other than that. Like, it's just like you don't set it next to Mousehold.
Like, yeah, I think you could do it manually with another Pokemon. I think.
Yeah, everything gets it.
If I think everything gets it right. I don't actually know how many of them, but I mean, maybe I don't know if Yan Mega gets it, but like it with that speed boost,
dude,
you could just get one speed boost and then manually get that Sunny Day up.
Yeah, like I think this has a sun thing, but I think this team is going to be strongest with Mousehold Como-O. It's going to be Mousehold, even Pikachu with Light Ball. I think protecting that Pikachu just to do Pikachu with Light Ball is Krizzle's strongest attacker on both sides of the spectrum. Funny enough.
Yeah.
So Pikachu,
true.
well, you had it a few seasons ago. I think your last season in the WPL. That thing with Light Ball gets over like 230 attack.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, it's nuts.
It hits
Volt Tackle,
really hard. Oh.
Yeah,
follow me? Pikachu gets follow me?
No. This is just this doc is a little out of date.
Okay.
I think this is like a Nat Dex kind of thing, but
yeah,
could you imagine?
No way does that get follow me.
Yeah, imagine that 2 points.
That'd be cool though.
2-point follow me user, fake out user, whatever.
Yeah, man.
But so let's just rate this team and then we can end the friggin' video because I think people, if you're still watching this, thank you. I don't know why you're still watching it, but I hope you enjoyed it. But all right, give me your last one, Miss Aaron. Be as ruthless as you want to your friend.
I think it is like a team, but it's like on the lower A's, like a A-. And that is because what we've been talking about with the inability to get Sunny Day up like consistently and effectively.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Like this team. I think this team, when you look at it, you're like, it's not really that much. As long as I just deal with Charizard and Venusaur, it should be okay. But not really. Like you've got to really watch out for Como-O and Metagross. And Comfey can be really annoying as well in its own right. Floatzel hits like a truck. Like the amount of times in random like doubles matches I've done on Showdown, Floatzel just can completely sweep a team if it wants to.
Yeah, the wave crash, yeah.
Yeah, it's the wave crash. It can hit so hard. And Cloth actually has a few tricks up its sleeve. I won't say much because I think Crizzle wants to have those little tricks.
Well, the ability's
Like,
right there. So
unspoken of.
the anger shell's
Yeah.
a thing. We all know about it. But yeah,
Yeah.
I wouldn't ignore it because Stab Rock is just so good offensively. So I do think for I think it's a 1 or a 2-pointer for that. I think that like we saw a team with a couple of throwaway 1s and 2-pointers, but Cloth I don't think is a throwaway. So I think that's a nice
No, not at all.
a nice way to finish off your draft.
Yeah.
But and a nice way to finish off this video, I guess. I do think B plus A minus is probably where to put this team. It's very hard, does a lot of different things. Very nice, well-rounded team, but I think that's going to be it for us. Aaron, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank
no
you for
problem.
taking the tag. I gotta do some editing now and
No
some
worries.
magicianry.
Always pleasure.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll be back, right? You'll be back.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, we'll do some more stuff. And Adrian, if you're listening, thank you for being a part of the first half. Thank you, people, for listening, watching, and participating, I guess, with your commenting. I don't care if you comment or not. But let us know what you think. If we were way off, if we were off, we weren't off. If you agree, make your comments. We just like to read them. I think other people do. The more content we have for the league, the better it is. So let's just have fun with it. Definitely. And don't be hurt. You know, if we said something you didn't like, A, I don't care, and B, talk about my team, you know?
Yep.
Or draft better, one or the other. But yeah, we'll just have some fun with it in future videos. Ultra Ball coming up soon. Not sure when, but it's coming. And we'll see you guys later. And good luck in week 1 if we don't see you.
Yep.
Peace.